is that it was all rainy, all changeable conditions. It was a nightmare for the drivers. This time, we're predicting beautiful weather all weekend for them, so should be at least consistent.
Consistency is the key, and we are running this Turn 9 chicane that the drivers are very familiar with now. Something that we did both notice, and you were the one that actually confirmed, is that we're running, it is slightly different. You know, we don't have the weather, but it's kind of the shortened Turn 7 hairpin down at the far end of the circuit over here. But you're right, the driver's not going to have to deal with all that weather that they had to deal with just a few short weeks ago, it seemed like we were here.
Yeah, it's sort of a quibbling detail, if you will. The Turn 7 is going to be a little different from what the last visit was for those who do follow the series. So the Turn 7 hairpin is going to be the short version, essentially. Instead of going all the way around for the wide open hairpin, they cut in a little bit earlier down towards the S's at Turn 8. Now, there are essentially 4 different classes that are running, but I believe we're going to be having them separated into 3 different classes for timing purposes. So we have the Cup cars, the GT3 Cup cars. Those are the quicker of the 2 classes, and those will have the Pro-Ams as well as the Masters category. The Masters category is your drivers who are 50 and over. And then the same deal with the Caymans. The slower class cars also have their Pro-Ams and Masters. And for the Caymans, they're all going to be categorized as one group effectively this weekend. So we'll be looking kind of at the overall for the Caymans. And Joey, for our viewers that are new to this series, that maybe you're here just for the Velocity Invitational, what's the main differences between these Caymans and these Cup cars?
Yeah, the GT3 Cup car is a different platform. Now, underneath, in terms of the drivetrain, they can be very similar in terms of that motor. However, this orange car driven by Matt Dusek, that orange car, that 251, is a GT3 Cup car versus this Checky-driven car is a Cayman GT4. I think the biggest difference that you see immediately is these GT3s, they seem a little bit bigger, right? They seem a little bit wider. The aerodynamics are a little bit more aggressive. The rear wing on the car is a little bit bigger, and just the performance window allows that to go a little bit faster. So if you're comparing the lap times between the 2 classes, the GT3 Cup's usually about a handful of seconds faster per lap than the Caymans out there. But both of these cars, both of the platforms, have 500 horsepower or more. They both use that 6-speed transmission, a racing transmission in there. And then, of course, they've got all the fun, cool driver aids as well as talking about things like ABS and traction control.
This is going to be vastly different from the rest of the cars on track that we have all weekend, and the fact that everything else is going to be exhibition runs, essentially. We're just out there to enjoy and appreciate car culture. This is an actual competitive series. So this is essentially the first rung on the ladder, or as they like to call it at Porsche, the pyramid that they have built of their single-make series. And this is where drivers get to start to cut their teeth. So there's a lot invested for all the drivers that you see on the track, and they're going to be doing their best to make the most of this session. They really need to try and make sure they get up to speed. They're happy with the car. And like we said, Joey, the good news is they actually have experience from this year at this track. So they're not coming in completely blind, but everybody's going to be really sharpening themselves with these sessions.
And also there was, call it the test available as well. So some of these drivers could have been out there as early as yesterday on this format. But so yeah, it's just kind of making sure you're up to speed, like you were saying, Joe, and getting used to it all. After all, it is practice number 1 out here on the early Friday morning. So I just have a feeling that these drivers right now, probably not on sticker tires, right? They're just out there kind of getting into the rhythm of things right now.
Yeah, no reason to use those up for the first practice session. This doesn't count for a whole lot. It's more for your purposes as a driver to really kind of refine things. And we do have some interesting names out there compared to typical. If you look at the top of the timing sheets, Josh Conley, currently the quickest, and he comes in as a former competitor over here regularly, but has since promoted himself up to the Carrera Cup Series. So he is kind of returning to his roots, getting to have some fun out here, and looking forward to seeing what he can do against some of our USA West regulars.
Right now, top of the board is a 139.1 from that driver of Josh Conley, and just as I say that, it was taken away by Brandon Hankins, so the lap time starting to shuffle around just a little bit. That fast lap is now a 138.98 as we see the 298 dive into this turn 9 chicane, probably one of our biggest and best passing zones that we've got on this layout here at Sonoma. I love these overhead, these drone shots that we get. We do have kind of that change of scenery. When we were here about a month ago, it was green, and now it's kind of faded to a little bit more the dead grass look out here, but we still have a little bit of green.
This is more what a lot of people, I think, picture as Sonoma Raceway, for sure. But yeah, it's been a little gloomy over us, I will say, but the drivers probably appreciate that. Nice cool air for the cars, cooler track temperatures so that you're not chewing up those tires. But you talked about Brandon Hankins taking that top spot. He has been the dominant force here in USA West. Every race that he has attended this season, he has won in that Pro-Am category. He was not there for race 2 at COTA, so he's actually not technically leading the championship. That's Mark Krigler by about 3 points right now, but that is obviously because Brandon not taking part in that one race means that Mark was able to take that victory, and that put him ahead by a tiny margin. Mark's going to have his work cut out for him to try and catch up to him, but he's been doing a great job this season, honestly. Mark Krigler's been one of my standouts, the way he has been progressing every session we have seen him out there, because this is only his second year of professional racing.
Riding on board here with Brandon Hankins, driving the 295. Now Brandon, to start this year over at Apex Motor Club over in Arizona, had pretty much a perfect weekend where he was collecting fast laps and pole positions and race wins, and he's been able to carry that momentum. So definitely one of the drivers to watch out for, at least at the front of the field here in this USA West Series, as we are now on board the 204 here of Mark Krigler, coming up into this turn 9 chicane section that I've been talking so much about, and it really gives you a good opportunity to see how wide it is going in and see how tall those curbs are, especially on that second apex there. Really allows the drivers to take advantage of the width of this racetrack.
Let's see how he does down into what is effectively the last corner, last braking zone here into turn 11. And then tries to square himself off the wall very close to the outside on that corner, almost street course-like through this final section. 12, kind of a nothing burger, and then across the line. He does not take the fastest lap back because he lost it over the course of this lap back to Josh Conley, and it's now about 0.7 of a second between them, which is a pretty sizable gap.
Yeah, Josh put in that 138.29, so definitely the drivers. I mean, we're only about 10 minutes into this, so I have a feeling that right about now is when the drivers have fully warmed everything up, including themselves, right? Refamiliarize themselves on, all right, where do I need to brake going into turn number 1? How deep can I go into turn number 9, or also into that turn number 7 down at the far end of the drag strip? So now that they've got those reference points kind of refreshed in their brain, they can start to feel out the car and how it is acting.
And credit to Dan Drowan. He's our quickest in the Cup Masters category. Now, this is his first competitive weekend running in the Cup cars. He actually was racing in the GT4 Caymans before, and has decided, with this being his home track, he's going to come on out and give it a go. And after trying the 992.1, he liked it enough that he would rather try and race the slightly faster car, and seems to have taken to it pretty well here.
Well, you say that, and yeah, I know. His competitor out there in the same class, Matt Dusek, just displaced him from that Masters lead. So 139.1 out of that orange 251 car. He's always one of the easiest cars to spot just because he's got that bright orange color car. Very easy no matter where it is on the racetrack to find it.
Love that we have this nice picture-in-picture onboard of Dan currently. And, Manny Gildaril actually just took the fastest time. So the Masters class, as you put it, kind of waking up a little bit, and drivers really finding their feet now. Also want to give a shout out to the Caymans because we haven't really talked about them yet. And Greg Checky, currently the quickest right now. He and Anna Checky also consider this something of a home circuit because they've only been occasionally racing in the West Series this season. They've been mostly focused on the Porsche Sprint Challenge North America Series.
And big time shout out to our producer behind the scenes, Mike Burba. I know that he's been doing a ton of development work, especially with the graphics and whatnot. And I'm not sure if you guys just saw, but we actually have some really cool dual picture-in-picture with driver onboard cameras in our towers now. So big shout out to Mike behind the scenes for making our production really top-notch.
Sounds like Greg Herback had a bit of a spin. That was at turn 2 some time ago. But no harm, no foul. He keeps it going. We've seen that a lot when we've had visits here, Joey, that turn 2 corner is really difficult.
And it's probably the steepest corner on the racetrack. I think that you could maybe argue a couple others because there are some significant hills here at Sonoma, but I think that turn number 1 is our greatest climb in elevation for sure. And then by the time you get up to the top of turn number 2, all of that climb, it just kind of plateaus at the top. So you're right, the car is doing something different on the entry versus what it's doing at the apex. And then also on the exit, it is a completely different section of elevation. So yeah, just a lot going on in that turn 2 area.
Keep an eye out on the 295 car, Brandon Hankins. It's a red and white machine. He just set 2 purple sectors out there on this lap, so he is likely to take that fastest lap away. Now, for our fans at the Velocity Invitational who aren't used to some of this terminology, when we talk about purple sectors, that means they're the fastest in those sectors of anybody. And he just crossed the line, and he did not set a purple final sector, but he has now the fastest lap by 1:37.864. It's about half a second quicker than Conley.
This is Justin Lewis up here at that turn number 2 complex we were just mentioning a couple minutes ago. Carrying all the speed throughout there. About, call it 15 minutes here into practice number 1, and I think the big one that is jumping out at me is that 270 car, Joe, that's currently sitting in 3rd place overall. Manny Gilles de Riel, that's a fantastic lap in practice from him.
A very good lap. And again, we do have to remember that there may be coaches in the car, but we don't have confirmation on that. So that could be Manny out there that has gone quickest. And also want to give a shout out to that 75 that we've got on screen, Justin Lewis. This was the scene of his first professional win. Race 2 at Sonoma, when we visited here early. He took a victory, and then he repeated that with race 2 at COTA as well. So Justin's on the upswing. We often talk about how he comes in with racing experience, but it's on the dirt bike side.
Yeah, it has 2 less wheels, right? And those, yeah, and those wheels tend to be a little bit skinnier than what's on the car. But no, Justin, very familiar with racecraft. Like you said, dirt bike, mountain bike racing as well. So I think that this is a driver that is plenty familiar with the competition format, and he is having so much fun getting used to racing cars now.
Coming into pit lane. Now, again, for our viewers that may not have gotten to sit in the driver's seat or follow closely, Joey, what would a driver be doing when they come in the middle of these practice sessions to pit lane? Is there communication with the team? Are there things or procedures that you would go through typically?
Well, first of all, when you pull it into pit lane, you need to make sure to slow it down in order to activate the pit lane speed limiter, right? Actually, we're going to get an onboard view of it right here with Anna Checky. So here's the cones. She needs to be on the speed limiter right now, which she is, 35 miles an hour. And now you're just telling the team, hey, I'm on pit road. I'm coming around the bend. Where are we at? And the team will respond, hey, you know what? We see you. You're 10 away, however far away from your pit box you are. Follow the car in. And now once you stop behind the board, have a chat with your team, right? Hey, you know, is the car understeering? You know, do you feel like the car is good throughout the racetrack? And if it's not, okay, well, where is it that we can work on it? Is it in the brake zones? Is it putting the power down coming out of the corners when you get on the throttle? Is it being able to let the car roll through the middle of the corner? So you're having these conversations with your team to try to improve the car. That's what practice is all about right now.
Love to see the team working together on these machines as well. It really is a team sport that they all have to try and put their best in to make sure they get the result for the weekend. But right now, Josh Conley is the one that's looking like a superstar because he is going quickest in Sector 1 and Sector 2. He's just come through the chicane currently and is going to try and take that fast slap back from Brandon Hankins. They have been in a bit of a back and forth on this.
They have, haven't they? And I've been really enjoying seeing it because it's been constantly going faster, right? Those lap times have been dropping and dropping and dropping. And if it's foreshadowing what we're going to see the rest of the weekend, it looks like it's going to be a great race between those two.
All three fastest sectors of anybody on the racetrack down to a 1:37.2. And once again, it is about half a second difference between Josh and Brandon. So now we wait to see whether or not the 295 tries to strike back on that one. Again, it won't mean a whole lot here because this is just practice that we're talking about, but this kind of sets the tone for the rest of the weekend. The real significant one is going to be practice 2. I say real significant, but significant in comparison because, as we have seen in the past, if something happens during qualifying, practice 2 times will be taken as their qualifying time. So just see actually a couple cars in the chicane right now going side by side. And that's the other thing that you got to practice here, Joey, is your racecraft.
Find out where you can place the car in order to make those passing moves. Because if you go down into turn number 9 on the inside line for the first time in a race trying to make it and you realize, oh my goodness, maybe there's not as much grip right here as there is on the racing line. Yeah, it might spell trouble for you. So, and sometimes it's not even practicing passing with another car. It's just, hey, you know what? What happens if I'm forced out to the outside here in this corner? How does the car act? And yeah, you're right. It's just practice time out there, so you might as well use all of the racetrack available to you.
See a lot of cars just leaving pit lane, so definitely a few of them taking that brief respite about halfway through this session. We get 40 minutes in this practice, so seems good to split it up evenly and then get back out there after you've done anything you need to do, feed some information, maybe change the tire pressures a little bit. I see the 14 of Zach Bradford and the 75 of Justin Lewis also returning. It is still Greg Checky, our fastest of the Caymans currently, with Anna just behind. And we've talked about this before, if you've watched this. Anna Checky, who is Greg's daughter, does not like to be slower than her dad. She's no doubt going to be trying to take a faster lap.
A 42.7 compared to a 44.4 between those two Checkies. I think that Anna definitely has more speed up her sleeve 100%. Right now. So it's just a matter of her getting out there on that equipment and turning those lap times. I see Brandon Hankins just crossed start-finish. He is going to go ahead and start a new one. And now we jump on board here, the 75. So this is Justin Lewis. And he is on a out lap right now. I believe he was following Zach Bradford coming out of pit lane. So this is a good example of when a car goes out there, it has not been racing yet. You see how much wheel input Justin has right now, just making sure the tires are completely up to temperature and he is ready to start a lap by the time he gets back to the other side of the racetrack.
Watching on board also gives us a chance to kind of watch the dash, since there's a few little tells that we can kind of pay attention to as well. These cars have a few aids in them, the ABS out there, as well as the traction control taking effect in various parts. The traction control not lighting up as much as we saw when it was a wet track last visit here. Seeing just little flashes as we watch Justin try to find the limit into some of these heavier braking zones. Let's see what happens into 11.
And there's some of those ABS dash lights you were talking about. So if you look directly in front of the driver, directly in front of his steering wheels, we see the shift lights, right? And those are the cascading colored lights that come up and then they disappear as he shifts up into fifth gear here. Now there's an additional set of lights that can pop on into some brake zones depending on how hard the driver is pushing that brake pedal pressure. But I think more what my eyes capture is just the steering wheel and Justin fighting the car going up into 2.
He's really active, that is for sure. Making a lot of corrections out there. First practice session, still probably getting used to things. Maybe it'll smooth out as the weekend starts to go on. And as well, we're going to have so much rubber put down because there's, especially compared to a usual USA West weekend, a ton of rubber. Now, some of that will not be the Yokohama rubber that this series runs on, so that may change it, but there will be a lot of track action.
Lots of cars, you're right, going to be turning laps here at Sonoma throughout the course of the weekend. 17 and a half minutes roughly left here in practice number 1. This is Brandon Hankins in the 295 going down through the carousel section. And trust me, folks, he is not doing 40 miles an hour like the dash says. I want to say it's about 140 or so by the time they get down to what is turn number 7. It's probably our fastest zone on the racetrack. And also probably right about here, it'll accelerate up into 5th gear by the time he actually reaches this turn number 9 brake zone.
So Hankins not showing at a particularly quick lap. We got another yellow flag. That's at turn 2 we're seeing. Don't know who's caused it quite yet. But hopefully, it looks like actually it's already cleared. So yeah, we are underway once again. So that's good news. We don't want to see any major incidents right at the start of the weekend for these cars.
Let's see what lap time Brandon is able to put down here, if this is going to be kind of more of a setup lap. Looks like that's going to be his out lap right there, and he is going to go ahead and try to improve on it. See a 138.7, and right now fastest lap time out of Brandon is actually down into the 37s. You had mentioned Josh Connolly broke down into the 37.2s a while back, and Brandon is still at a 37.8.
That was Dan Drowan who spun, it sounds like, up at turn 2, but carried on. I mentioned that he's driving the 992.1 out there. Those who have been following Porsche closely know that the Carrera Cup is racing the 992.2. Now, Sprint Challenge is still on the older model, but they're going to allow them to race them in 2027. So these drivers will get a chance to get their hands on it. Now, it will be mixed in with the old 992.1s, so we'll have multi-class racing between the pair of them. But really, I'm sure excited, as that has been a very popular car that Porsche has brought out up in the Carrera Cup level of their single-make racing, and certainly seems to have struck a chord with plenty of drivers. But no quicker laps recently between Conley and Hankins. However, the last lap for Manny Gil de Real is his personal best. He is still our fastest of the Masters in the GT3 Cup cars and 3rd overall. So, with the drivers carrying on, 15 more minutes left to go, Joey.
Yeah, and it seems like they've kind of settled into how they like the car in terms of the lap time and getting the feel of it. And you were asking, when they were coming into pit lane, what are those conversations between the driver and the team? And I think right now it is all information intake from the driver, right? Go out there, turn your consistent laps, and don't just turn a qualifying effort of 1, 2, maybe 3 laps. Be able to go out there and turn some consistent 5, maybe even a 10-lap run. And what happens to the car? What does it feel like when we do lap 1? What does it feel like when we do lap 2? And then at the end of the run, does it feel any different? Which direction did the car go? Does it pick up a little bit of an understeer? Does it pick up a little bit of an oversteer? Do you need more grip right in the middle of the corner? So those are the types of information that the driver is trying to learn right now, soak it all in, and then once this practice is over, have those conversations with the team, and then the team can decide what to do to make the car better.
It probably seems a whole lot less glamorous when we talk about it in these terms, but it is how these drivers get quicker. Now, I did see someone, I think that was actually Bradford, go through the mud in the chicane, and that became a big deal last time we were here, as there was a huge mud pit, a puddle essentially, at that corner. And it is, I guess there has been some dampness before now, because I do see there is some wetness over there, but drivers will not want to go wide while it remains sticky and grimy in there.
Well, to your point, so we're talking about the turn 9 chicane area, and typically when we run this format, call it, they have a tire bundle at the first apex. Now, it's not out there right now. As a driver, I mean, that's free time, right? Now, I understand it's practice. You don't want to abuse it per se. However, the drivers are going to be cheating towards that apex every single lap, and every single lap that they get a little bit closer to the dirt, they're going to get a little bit more confident, and they're going to see that lap time continue to drop, and all of a sudden we're going to have drivers running through the grass.
Yep. Right now, like you said, everybody's being pretty respectful. They're just glancing that first curb on the right-hander, but the second one definitely seems to be a little trickier at times with drivers sliding around on their way into there. Brandon Hankins, currently watching him, did have his speedometer working on our onboard. I saw that he got up to about $135 at the end of the back straightaway.
And that makes sense. You know, I was thinking maybe 140, maybe 150, but depending on the tires, depending on the grip level, you got to remember Sonoma Raceway, not necessarily known for its incredibly fast top speeds. It is all about the driver managing corner after corner, linking those sectors together.
So Mark Krigler set a personal best. He gets down to a 42.4 that last time through. A few more drivers coming into pit lane in front of us at this stage. And again, knocking on wood, it's been a relatively clean first practice session. Haven't seen much in the way of yellow flags. Haven't really seen much in the way of spins. We've had 2 incidents at turn 2, but that's essentially it. Everybody else has just been plugging away out here.
Right on board with one of the Cayman classed cars. This is Anna Checky. Now, Greg Checky also runs an incredibly similar scheme, so if you get confused on these onboards, definitely look right up top. It shows the driver name and their car number out there. As here is Anna, definitely one of the hot talents on the scene here. She is constantly improving, constantly getting better, and especially in 2026, picking up a lot of those P1 trophies.
Absolutely. I think she's been enjoying that. This is her second full season, I should say, of professional racing. Last time out was her introduction back in 2025. Cut her teeth and did a very good job with it, but really has now started to narrow down and get better with every weekend, picking up pace and competing for wins. She's still sitting in second on the timing sheets, and looking at the time differences between them, looks like she is about 9/10 off of 42.6 for Greg. Anna's down to a 43.6. But the nice thing about that Charlie Hayes racing team is when you've got multiple drivers, that data can be shared and they can actually use it to help one another.
So back to the talking about. You bring up an excellent point. Well, post-session, yeah, you've got data, you've got video, and when you have multiple cars in a team, you get to overlay all that stuff. Now, the data, it's a bunch of squiggly lines, right? But when you look at a specific lap, it is so important for the driver to compare it to another driver. Oh, I see that you're 2 miles an hour faster to be able to roll through turn number 9. Oh, I see that you're a little bit later on the brake pedal going into that turn number 7 hairpin down at the far end of the track. So it is nice to have those direct overlays because it can show you exactly where you are or aren't making time.
The devil is in the details, or in this case, the fast laps are very much in the details, as you can make up so much, like you said, with just a mile per hour or two here or there. That makes tenths. Sometimes that makes seconds worth out there over the course of everything. And we haven't been seeing much in the way of green popping up on our timing and scoring, although I do see Laura Eli setting personal bests, and she improves down to a 39.1. She'll stay in 4th in the Masters right now, so has not jumped up to the front of that group. But she's another one that actually used to be a regular over here in the USA West Racing, but is now kind of in a partial schedule this season for USA West.
I love seeing the drivers come back out. You're talking
Yes.
about Laura Eli. It's phenomenal having her in the paddock. Another one, Dusek, right? Matt Dusek is another one of these drivers that has a lot of experience in USA West, but has gone on, race a lot of North American competition and whatnot. And then also the new crop of drivers, right? Dan Drowan getting into the Cup car for the first time, getting out of the Cayman and going up that class. So Not only do we have a lot of the history from USA West here, but we also have the new drivers as well.
And it's no wonder that Dan came here. I talked about this being his local track. He's actually part of the Turn 2 club at this circuit, so he loves it at this place. And it's no wonder that he very quickly found his feet as he started to set times. He's still sitting in third in the Masters right now in this new car with actually less than a tenth of a second to overtake Dusek for that second place. So that'll be one to watch to see if he can find that tiny bit of time to overtake him on the timing sheets by the end of this one, which is down to about 7.5 minutes left to go. So with the lap times, that's going to give them only maybe 5 more laps to finish this.
I'm with you, though. I love seeing these gaps as close as they are, especially between Drowan and Dusek. We know that'll be a fantastic race. If we've learned anything about Dan Drowan, especially in those Caymans from earlier this year, he likes to race it out, right? He likes to go side by side. He likes to do those aggressive passing maneuvers. So he's always a fun one to watch out there. And then we mentioned it earlier in the show as well, up towards the front of the field. Josh Conley versus Brandon Hankins. That's going to be another terrific fight to watch.
Yeah, and I don't think we've – well, yeah, I take that back. I think we have gotten to see it a little bit earlier because I think back at COTA they did race against each other, but certainly looks like it should be pretty close between them, as you said, at this circuit. We'll see how it develops because this is only the first practice. One of them might find a little bit of an edge later on. Could get closer, could get farther apart, but that's why we're waiting to see once we get to the actual race itself. Does look like Drowan's parked it in the meantime as he's in pit lane. Justin Lewis and Greg Herback as well. I know Greg had a spin earlier, but I'm not seeing any time show up for him. I'm not sure.
I have not seen his car out there at all. Now, I say that, and I see the 49 fly by start-finish, so he is on the racetrack. So, Joe, no, you're right. I just missed it. I think there just might be a little bit of a transponder issue going on with the 49.
And Yep, I see it now from race control. So, yeah, that's why we're not getting times. We'll find out later what sort of laps he has been running. That kind of adds to, I think, a bit of an interesting mystery because remember back to COTA, Greg Herback and Greg Checky had a battle of the Gregs up at the front of the Masters, and I have a feeling that's going to carry on. From what we've seen earlier this season, I'm pretty sure he's going to be close to those quickest times in the Caymans.
Always one of our best competitors out there, talking about Greg Herback, and a resilient competitor as well. You know, he's faced a lot of adversity and call it the last year and a half, and it doesn't matter what racetrack, he shows up, he unloads the car, and he goes out there and he goes to business. So definitely something to be said for that.
I'm not shocked because I'm sure he's sick of us bringing it up because it seems like we do every time. But he's a former ski racer, and that takes a lot of guts. So for someone of his caliber to run into some scary moments out there and say, I'm getting back in the car. Yeah, of course, Greg's gonna be unafraid.
And I'm gonna draw the silly comparison. If there's somebody to enjoy early mornings and getting out on a racetrack, it's a ski racer.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, so 8:30 in the morning is no big deal. We just had someone with a big off there at the exit of the carousel. I saw a whole bunch of dust kicked up there. That is not a place where you want to go all that wide because I've seen in the past cars get spit back into that barrier easily.
And the two cars that are over there, I believe it's Krigler and Hankins. So it had to have been one of those two cars, or at least, you know what, it's not Krigler. This is Manny Gilles car. I just got the livery a little bit confused there. But both of them are continuing on like it's no big deal, and so I wouldn't look too far into it. But it would have been cool to see for sure.
Yeah, it was exciting. I think it may have been Hankins that I saw that had that moment now that we finally realized which cars that was. So we were watching Laura Eli now on the screens, the 209 down into turn 4. Pretty big plunge downhill here before it flattens out for a bit, and then it's another huge drop into that carousel. This is that area that I was talking about. Watch on the exit as she takes a wide line in, cuts back, and now you got to get the throttle down for what is pretty much the longest straight on the track.
It's kind of amusing just kind of where that overhead shot was hovering at the time. It didn't look like the carousel had a whole lot of elevation as we get the gap between Laura, Eli, and now this is going to be a sector time for sector number 2 that's going to be popping up here. Testing out some of these new graphics that we got going on. But I was going to mention just the elevation didn't seem that dramatic through the carousel when you were talking her through that corner there, but turn number 1, steepest uphill, steepest downhill, definitely the carousel, and it's through the entirety of the corner.
It is one of the most recognizable corners on this track, and perhaps one of the most unique as well. Such a long run around that corner, more than 180 degrees that you're going as you drop down, multiple stories in elevation before it flattens out, and then on top of things, it dumps you onto a drag strip, so then it's a change of grip as well.
Lots going on here at Sonoma. At least we're not having to deal with the rain like you had mentioned when we started this thing. My goodness, I think the drivers are so happy to see. It is overcast here, don't get me wrong, but it is going to be a beautiful weekend of racing. I think by the time we get to Sunday, it's supposed to be mid-80s and sunshine.
Interesting note from race control. We got debris at turn 6 right now. I didn't see anything from that overhead shot, but I wasn't really watching out for it. Let's see if we can spot it here. They haven't stopped the session to grab it, so it's just a note that they've left out. Now, I'm not seeing anything obvious, so it must be something small.
Yeah, and it could even be up at the top of the hill as well, like top of the carousel area, turn 6. So a little bit of a mystery. But you see the green sector number 1 for Laura Eli. Green sector means a personal best. Now, she is on sector number 2. That's why it's kind of highlighted in gray there. She'll be crossing this timing beacon. There it is. So slightly slower in sector number 2. And now she starts sector number 3 here to complete the lap. Her best lap so far, 138.8. We'll see if she's able to beat that, make up a little bit of time here in this final couple corners.
Needs 2/10 to improve over Dan Drowen's best time as they come around turn 11 here. Also saw that Matt Dusek set a best of anybody in sector 2. So that was not his best lap, but it's finding something out there. Now, Laura did not set her personal best, unfortunately, but the last lap still competitive, down at a 139.5.
Only about a half second off of her fastest time of the session so far, and we are running out of time. Coming up to the checkered flag here in about 15 seconds or so. So these drivers trying to soak up the last little bit of information they can.
Yeah, and this is something where they can actually finish their lap even once the clock hits 0. If they've started the lap, they are allowed to come around and complete it if they choose. We'll see who does that and who just pops it on into pit lane as the checkered flag is out. Session is officially over. We're going to watch on board with Justin Lewis down through the S's as there is that checkered flag.
One of the important parts, we're just kind of getting into the nitty-gritty of, what the drivers and teams do, but even on these checkered flag laps, if you are coming into pit lane, it is so important to carry your speed. Do not slow down, right? Do not treat it as a cool-down lap. That data, those tire pressures, those tire temperatures, everything is so important to that team to make sure that the car is running properly in those race conditions. So don't cool it down. Bring it to them hot.
Need to make sure that you get a good cross-section of data of what the car is actually doing. And from what I'm watching of everybody going through the chicane, yeah, they're pushing. Everybody is sliding those cars through that right-left right now.
It's really, I've been enjoying watching Dan, right? Dan Drowen is, I think, enjoying the new Cup car. I mentioned how feisty he was in terms of the racecraft earlier this year in the Cayman, and I think his car control is already being put on display out here. He is definitely sliding it and rotating it through a few of these corners.
So from what it seems like, pretty much everybody has wrapped it up. Josh Conley is your quickest overall. Now, interestingly, Matt Dusek, your fastest in the Masters, but he just jumped up into second with that final lap. Then down in the Caymans, Zach Bradford has moved ahead of Greg Checky. So that was a last-second run for him, down to a 1:41.9. So there, if you're watching our screens online, is the GT3 Cup Masters order at the end of the day. And then I assume we'll be showing the rest of our classes. As up next, we'll be heading off to Group 5 for the Velocity Invitational. That's going to be the 1966 to 1979 historic SCCA B and C sedan. So make sure and stick around for that.
We're just going to be very quiet with this. I assume we're not talking during breaks.
Welcome back to the Velocity Invitational. We're getting ready to start Group 5. That's the 66 to 79 historic SCCA B and C sedans, although we got a nice view of some of our Formula cars and prototypes here sitting down in the paddock. Make sure and head on down all through the paddock if you haven't yet to take a look at some of the fantastic vehicles that are on display. And this is going to be an interesting one, Joey, seeing all these various cars out here, because I'm not as familiar with this era of sedan racing, but some great names out there like BMW, Datsun is out there. I see a Lotus in amongst them, so some beautiful looking cars, maybe not the flashiest that we'll see today, but still a lot of fun.
Yeah, we're going to have lots of different cars hit this racetrack throughout the next 3 days of the Velocity Invitational event. So you're right. It should be a lot of fun to listen to the different engines, see the different cars go around, and got to remember the race cars that we're used to seeing on the professional circuits now make their speeds so differently. So I think just watching these cars, enjoying the sounds and sights of them is part of the entire experience here at Velocity.
See them all kind of slowly getting up to speed. We won't be quite seeing the speeds that we saw earlier this morning when we had some of the 50s to 60s GT cars out there on circuit, but still will be fun to wheel them around. Definitely a pretty big group of cars as well. I'm seeing over 30 of them getting ready to take, or already on the track, or getting ready to take to the track at the moment. And a few of the other significant names. I do see a Porsche out there, a 68 Porsche racing with Larson behind the wheel. And then also a Mini Cooper racing, a 66 Mini Cooper.
I was just going through the names. I actually recognize a lot of big drivers out there. I think I see Ara Malkassian out there. I think I also saw Jeff Mosing's name out there as well. Probert is out there in a Datsun 510. So not only do we have some really fun cars out there, but lots of drivers that have decided to spend their weekend here with these fun cars to put on an amazing show for everybody.
This has got to be such a fun event for drivers that do like to collect. That, you know, you get lots of chances for modern cars, Joey, but to take some of your toys out and really get to show them off in this fashion has got to be a bit more unique experience.
Definitely more unique, and I mean, I think one of the cool parts is that these cars, they raced against each other back in the day, so it is cool to see them lined up pretty much nose to tail. This is a group of Datsun 510s rolling through what is the Turn 4 area here on the racetrack. Got 4 of them right now, nose to tail, coming up to the carousel section.
And I'm sure we'll be saying this a lot, but this is definitely from an era before driver aids and various things. These are very analog cars. It's all very raw. So for them to wheel them, and it does look like they are hustling them around the carousel there and going wheel to wheel, that, yeah, that is all down to the driver to make the difference in these machines.
Almost got 3 wide action there between this group of cars. And of course, in the Velocity Invitational, we are running the call it standard layout here at Sonoma Raceway. So they're going to take the nice flowing turn 8 and 9 section. They're not going to be running the chicanes like we saw the competitor cars not too long ago. So we really get a chance to see these cars yaw out as they enter this high-speed turn number 9.
This is also in the era, too, that these cars were probably, while they were maybe among the lower rungs of racing where drivers were kind of working their way up, you would still see Formula One drivers. You would see IndyCar drivers have little goes down in there. Unfortunately, I think that Porsche 911 just had a big moment at turn 9 and clipped the wall, unfortunately. Now it's still carrying on, but it was a huge tank slapper that they had to save and just barely got it off the tires in time. That is good to see, as we'll be having some competitive Porsche racing, and the last thing we want to see is one of the classics torn up today.
It's just a few more names that I'm recognizing out there, especially in car culture world. Hiroki Nakamura is out there right now competing in a Datsun 510 as well. So, not only are the cars the stars here, I think we literally have some pretty cool stars that are going to be out here this weekend.
Some more shots. This is the stuff I love to see as an open wheel fan. Seen all the classics. There's one of our old Lotus cars down there. I believe there's a lot of Formula 2 that should be showing up this weekend. And again, definitely highly encourage everybody, if you get a chance, to make your way down. Yes, I know we all want to see them out, the cars out on track and performing, but you can get up close and see all of them shown off in pit lane in the paddock back there behind the scenes, and get to see them right up next to your face. For those curious, right now Moriarty is our quickest in this section with a 1:54 and his 69 Datsun 510. We've actually got, I'm seeing somewhere in the realm of, it looks like close to 10 Datsun 510s.
There might be at least, I think there's over a dozen of them out there. Oh, and unfortunately, we've got one of those Datsuns spun out right now, and that is in that same exact turn 9 area that the Porsche had a little bit of trouble in earlier today as well.
Yeah, the Porsche Cup drivers are running the chicane version, so they're not running high speeds, but the version you love, Joey, with the S's flowing directly into turn 10, unfortunately already catching out a couple drivers on only our second session.
I think we're seeing why I love that section so much. You really have to be on top of the car and what it is doing. It is extremely high speed going into that section. And you mentioned it earlier on in this session. These cars, they don't have driver aids, right? There's no ABS, there's no traction control, there's no aerodynamic aids. There's just a little bit of wider bodywork so you can fit some bigger tires underneath that thing. So the drivers really have to be on top of the speeds they are carrying into some of these sections.
Yeah, Chet Taylor there, we've been watching in the 58. His 71 Alfa Romeo GTV has been absolutely wheeling around this place. You can see the inside tire, the front tire, getting off the ground. These things are so softly sprung. I also find it interesting that the hood, actually, I think the aerodynamics is bringing the hood up just a little bit.
So what they would do is they'll essentially put some washers in those hood latches, and they'll essentially vent it out. So it's creating a little bit of a low pressure zone underneath there and allowing a lot of that air to escape out from underneath that hood. But you're right, Joe. No, I'm that's what I am used to, is spacing out those hood latches. But you're right. When he was going fast, it was bowing up, and then when they got to the slow speed sections, it settled back down.
Seeing a lot of this as well. Some wheel-to-wheel racing, racing in air quotes. Obviously, there's no real competition here, but the drivers enjoying really getting to go up against one another, especially in some of these Datsuns that, as we mentioned, seems incredibly popular out here. And this is down through that S's section, just back and forth. Big drop there, actually, down into 9 as the drivers start to pick up speed. And then you got to slam on the brakes down into 11 once again. You definitely don't want to overshoot 11 because there is no runoff room to the outside of that one.
Got a new fast lap up there, and I'm not too surprised that it's turned by Jeff Mosing. Now, Jeff has a ton of professional driving experience and competition under his belt, and right now he is in one of those 1969 Datsun 510s. He's driving car number 82. That is our fastest car on the racetrack right now.
In fact, he's got it by 2.5 seconds over Moriarty at the moment. Ooh, there's another awesome look at some of the glamorous cars we've got down in the pits, down in the paddock.
I'm a bit of a wheel snob, Joe. And these wheels look amazing. It looks like some really nice three-piece custom-built wheels for this car. Just an amazing-looking, styled machine.
I'll have to send you. A friend actually introduced me to a video this weekend on one of the Japanese wheel manufacturers who apparently kicked off a lot of Japanese tuning culture. So you might find that one interesting. But as we watch the 92, or is that, heading down into the hairpin. They also are wheeling this thing, really taking it all the way out to the outside.
Yeah, I was trying to see if that was the 92 or the 82, but I think you're right there. That's looking like the 92 of Hoff, driving one of the Datsuns out there. Lot of them, lot of Datsuns. I want to say it's about 14 of them out there on the racetrack. Our quickest non-Datsun is actually the 58 of Taylor out there driving a 1971 Alfa Romeo GTV.
We got Porsches, we got Bimmers out there. There is a 75 Toyota Corolla. I can't believe I didn't notice that before. That Parks is running. That's the number 95. Corolla, not a name that I would typically, associate, but, again, has deep roots in touring car racing.
And when we think of Toyota Corolla, we think of the economy car, right? The front-wheel drive car. However, call it pre-1990. I think it was about 1988 is when they stopped producing the rear-drive Corollas. But pre-1990, Toyota Corollas were rear-drive vehicles, so 4 cylinders up front, driven out those rear wheels. So they actually make for a fantastic handling automobile. And then, of course, the AE86 cars a little bit later into the generations were famous in car culture and drifting.
And this is why events like this are so important, is because you've got the history, the evolution, and the roots of these various cars coming out there, and these opportunities to see, this is where this car came from. This is what it started as.
If you look on our left side timing ticker now, we've got all of the cars. So not only do we have the driver's name and the running order of how fast they are going, but there's a good look of all of the different cars that we've got on the racetrack between the Datsuns, the Alfa Romeos, the Porsches, the BMWs, see a couple Lotuses, some Mini Coopers out there. So a plethora, even a BMW 2002. No, not the year, the model. This looks like a Dallara, yeah. So Dallara, obviously known for making extremely high-end competition race cars, whether it be IndyCar chassis, prototype chassis, lots of different sports racers, and this one looks pretty fun too.
Oh yeah, would not mind getting
out of
that one.
I think the most difficult part of that thing was probably getting in and out of it.
As soon as you said that and pointed it out, I realized, that looks like trying to get into a NASCAR stock car. The way you got to get your legs over. As Glenn Chu in the 37 currently working his way around.
And hey, look at this. I didn't even notice we have a Beetle out there as well. Did you mention that?
No, I did not, but I did catch it. The number 66.
Going through turn 9? Yeah.
A Type 1, a 1965 version of the old VW Beetle. So, again, a wide variety of cars, and something that harkens back that we don't get to see as much. There's just so many different silhouettes. Some of them are pretty similar out there, but yeah, you definitely will recognize the Beetle versus the Datsuns versus the Porsche 911 that's out there running in an era when everybody was trying their own thing with the manufacturers.
This is the 18 car of Richard Stewart Milne. He is actually inside the top 5 in terms of the fastest lap times this session. Wonder if he's going to be making a little bit of a cool down lap here soon. Let one of those cars by going into the close end hairpin down here.
I love the contrast that we're going to be getting, because I looked at the schedule, and historic SCCA sedans Next up is going to be 94 to 2019 Le Mans and IMSA's ALMS prototypes and GT cars. Talk about whiplash.
I think you mean ALMS.
I've always said it at ALMS. As ALMS. I guess that's just weird. American Le Mans Series, for those who don't know what I'm talking about. But
it's going to be with the GITS cars, right?
Yes.
Sorry, Joe. Sorry.
No. I sometimes we just have our own idiosyncrasies that we don't realize until we get with other people. But we only got about 4 minutes left in this session. And I'm actually still seeing some green sectors popping up. So there's drivers even well into this session that are still finding time out there.
This green number 58 is driven by Chet Taylor. So over on the left side of the screen there, you see him in 5th place. And there's that hood bowing up again. So, Joe, you called it out perfectly. I thought it was purposely done to try to vent a little bit of the air out from underneath the hood. But I just think that it shows you how thin some of the bodywork pieces are on some of these cars to try to save the weight. I mean, that was the name of the game with a lot of these vintage cars. Just take as much weight out of it as you can.
Yeah, this was back in the area where safety was kind of an afterthought for many of these vehicles, especially at this level of racing. You started to get a bit of it at this time in the early 70s.
I was noticing this car out here, the number 89. So it is that white and green car, kind of the meat in the sandwich here. But that is a 1966 Lotus Cortina out there. Don't see too many of those very often anymore.
Oh, yeah. We often forget that Lotus didn't just make high-end race cars, but they also did produce production vehicles as well. I mean, they still do, but obviously they were a little bit different looking than this sedan. And, the old Lotus touring cars were something to behold. Oh, it honestly, the styling of it kind of reminds me of classic 50s.
Yeah.
50s.
It looked like a
metal.
Ford Fairlane from the back. Yeah. Yep. Totally. So here they are on the front straightaway. The Lotus is going to get out-muscled by a couple of these other cars out here. That was the number 20 car going by him there, going into what was turn number 1 out there. I believe that is one of the Alphas following one of the Datsuns here as well.
Quickest, still Jeff Mosing, and that 82 at a 149.7 at 2.5 seconds faster than anybody else out there on the track. Moriarty is still trying, though. He set a personal best first sector. I think he still wants to try and take that back. It's been Datsun versus Datsun. Actually, both of them 69 versions of that car.
Yeah, just trying to find the driver, the number 20 out here. I saw that the number 16 driven out there, I believe it was Dan Gaggiano, was part of this group that we're watching here. There's about 4 or 5 cars on screen, but this number 20 car seems to be ripping it up pretty good here to close out this session.
Yeah, the speed differences are also something interesting between them.
And I found him. It just took me a little while. Sometimes I have to use my brain and actually read the names, but it's Ramici out there driving a 1967 Alfa Romeo GTV. That is that red number 20.
Very good-looking car for sure. Alfa Romeos with that kind of distinctive nose, especially during this era. Almost reminds me of a bird, the way that it looks on the front. And checkered flag is out, so we're going to bring in our Group 5 cars, park them for a bit, and it'll be time for Group 8. And again, if you missed me mentioning it earlier, that's 1994 to 2019 Le Mans and IMSA, ALMS prototype, and GT cars. They're going to be out on track in just a moment. Stick around because there's more to come here at the Velocity Invitational. You're watching the Velocity Invitational, and now it is time for Group 8, 1994 to 2019 Le Mans, IMSA, and ALMS prototype and GT cars on the circuits. Definitely some very cool things on offer. We see the Ford GTLM out there as well, the 2016 Ford GTLM racing. We've got some Porsche GT3s also running. We've got a Riley Gen 1 at Daytona prototype, so not something that you see as often anymore. And Joey, I love that we've got these cars out there because you were a competitor, maybe not in these specific cars, but during this era of racing.
Yes, yeah, definitely. So very familiar with at least a few of these cars. Will be pretty fun to watch them. And I think the biggest difference, like you were just mentioning when we were closing out the previous session, it's going to be pretty much a big speed difference.
Yeah, a lot faster around here. We'll see who is willing to wheel it in these cars, because you're going to be going at a lot higher speeds. And what a range that we've got as well. As far back as the 99 Chevy Camaro that Burton is in the number 34. And then as recent, as we mentioned, is 2016 Ford GTs, which, especially that GTLM, those things were quick. That was a fast car.
Extremely fast. You know, there is one of those GTLMs. Same thing with one of the C6R Corvettes. And then right in the middle is one of the old Grand Am prototypes. So one of those Daytona prototypes, an old SunTrust car. As we've got one of the Porsche cars spun around. This looks to be exiting what is turn number 4 near the top of the hill. A little bit of a tricky corner as it's downhill throughout, and you can see even on exit it is still downhill.
Car has been moving a little bit, so at least he's got power.
I think what he's doing, it's tough to see around that corner.
Yeah.
Right?
All right, so he's able to get going. That was Fan there in that number 12 Porsche GT3R, but gets it underway once again. In fact, we got an open cockpit prototype, something we don't even see anymore at the top level of prototype racing.
Going through what is turn number 9, sitting behind that, of course, Pratt C6R. At least I'm pretty sure it's one of the, is it a C7? I can't quite see the front of it. It looks like a C7.
I think you may be right. Yeah.
Yeah, it is a C7R.
Yeah, that's Mueller out there in that number 3 machine that just went by us now. And boy, you can hear it. You talked about it earlier that we'll hear the different engine notes. And that was something even when I got to watch this on track and compete back just not that many years ago. It was always the car that you knew immediately when it went by as the Corvettes.
Yeah, and I think that goes all the way back to the call it GT1 days with the C5 Corvettes, right? Is that when they hit the scene with that yellow livery, all of a sudden you didn't just see it out there on the racetrack. You literally felt it as it drove by you.
It is an impressive note. So if you're not out by the track, get out there and go listen for a bit, maybe with a bit of ear protection if you need. As you'll have an experience that is like none other for sure.
Watching Tom Mueller drive here in the number 3 car. And yeah, you know, just we talk about the stars being the cars out here. There are so many faces and names. You know, Tom Mueller is actually an aerospace engineer and rocket engine designer. So I think he's plenty familiar with horsepower.
And going fast. So, yeah, this is very cool to see him get to wheel that thing. And he's definitely moving.
Going to the inside as one of these other cars, one of the prototypes sneaking down the inside. Not too surprised there, but we're going to hear the full might of this Corvette as it rumbles down the front straightaway.
Running just behind that number 24 that I was talking about earlier. See that is a Pescarolo Morgan 01. So that's from the 2012 era. That's right about the time they were starting to close up the cockpit. So that's among the last, likely, of the open cockpit prototypes, I believe, during that ALMS era.
Wicked fast cars. And you know, I was actually reading something not too long ago, just kind of showing all of the lap times throughout the last 2 decades of prototypes in motorsports here in North America. And the speeds that even these cars were running are incredibly comparable to what the current cars are running now. So I think that prototypes, they've been at that speed level. It really has just kind of been the series mandating how fast they can actually go.
Yeah. I mean, you take the top of the car off, and that's a lot of weight. So I imagine they had some incredible speed, especially through the corners. These things were downforce machines. You could tell just by the appearance of it. Very well sculpted car. Worth noting, since we were talking about the GTLM, the 4 GTs earlier, there is a 100th of a second difference between that Ford and the Riley Gen 1 prototype right now.
That's incredible. I mean, usually we're used to seeing that sort of stuff in competition formats and like a qualifying or something. But really, really neat to see him that close out there on the racetrack. I have a feeling this 24 car is going to jump up towards the front of the board if the transponder seems to be working properly. It doesn't seem like it's registering a lap time, but I was watching that prototype rip through the S's down here, and I mean, it is the fastest car on track.
Bit of a shame that we won't get an actual time, it seems, at least right now. Ford going to pull out of the way and allow the others by. Trenery, I believe that we see in the Daytona, Spencer Trenery. That's Jeff O'Neill currently driving the Ford as they'll head down through. And this will be another spot where we'll see that 24 car absolutely show its power down through the carousel. But he's staying patient for the time being, waiting behind the Riley.
Well, and I know it can show its horsepower, but the problem is that Grand Am Daytona prototype in front of him has plenty of horsepower and go sauce as well. So this is really neat to see because these are 2 different prototypes that never competed against each other on the same piece of racetrack. Of course, had ALMS separate from Grand Am in this time period, and now it is all one together with the merger considered IMSA. So pretty neat to see these 2 very, very different prototypes from very different series, but the same time period.
Yeah, it's wild to see how far things have come on that front as well. We can maybe take a bit for granted the era that we are in with not only have IMSA converged, but you think about how the WEC also shares some of the DNA now in the prototypes so that the cars can compete across. And here we had 2 that raced in North America, only in North America, and yet still we're not competing against one another on track. Now we get visuals of the very old machinery way back.
Is that considered a prototype?
I mean, everything at that point was prototypes. For those that can't see the big screens, we're looking at some of the what look like maybe either 20s or even into the teens competition machinery out there. And I don't mean 2020s. I mean 1920s.
Thank you for clarifying that. You know, my brain doesn't go there, but I'm sure
somebody. I got to make sure.
Yeah. Beautiful shots from overhead Sonoma Raceway here. See the drag strip that's incorporated into the facility as well. Let's get some more shots of these Porsches out here. This is the number 9 car. It's a 2006 GT3 Cup car. And this actually looks to be a little bit more of call it a Grand Am spec. Now, so this is where it really gets convoluted, right? These GT cars, they had a bunch of different places that they were able to race. And nowadays, when we think GT3, oh, okay, they're all the same type of car. However, it was not the case 20 years ago. So a lot of these cars, a little bit more individual than kind of what the mass are made like now.
Exactly, and as we saw earlier today, there's also single make series, and Porsche has been running single make for many years, since the 90s, essentially. So that kind of is its own beast as well. And this is the GT3 Cup, so it's kind of a question mark. What did it run in? Unfortunately, I don't have that information in front of me, but certainly with that distinct Porsche 911 look that is now iconic.
Watch this car go down through the high-speed section. This is where these newer cars really excel in terms of the speed levels, the grip levels. You know, the designers and engineers completely understood the aerodynamic pieces they were starting to add to the cars, and this is really that generation where, at least in call it production-based race cars, they really started to go fast.
Remember how you expected that the 24 was the quickest on track? You want to take a look at the timing sheet for me?
Yeah, 131, about 5 seconds faster than anybody else. And, I mean, really 10 seconds faster than the majority of the field.
Ooh, we just had a big lockup from the 9 coming up into turn 2. So, again, and this is what I love to see. And yes, we don't want to see anything happen to these cars, but I want to see them really get thrashed out there and put them through the paces, show what they can do. Because, to me, this is what race cars are all about. Yes, it's great when they look pretty and you can show them off in a showroom, but I want to see them on track and really be run. It's definitely wiggling a little bit down his way through the carousel section, so hustling it through the middle part of the lap currently as C continues to try and race it as hard as he can. We jump up a little bit to another of our Porsches in the meantime.
There's another 997 car, it looks like. So that 2006 car, the number 9 that we were watching, it's actually a couple of those first generations of the 997 cars out there. They had the 996s just before this, and then the 997 GT3 Cup cars were introduced, call it mid-2000s, and then, as we know, Joe, constant iterations, constant evolvement out of those cars.
I mean, I've been covering Porsche series only since 2024, and they've already had changes. I've covered 2 generations in that. Yeah, I think that was Lauber that we were watching in the 11 potentially, but this is the 77 on our screens with Turpins in the 2010 version of the GT3 Cup, and I think it is a Grand Am version if I'm seeing right on timing and scoring.
Yeah, this is an old Magnus car, Magnus Racing, of course, a professional race team that has competed in Grand Am and then up into IMSA. So I would not be surprised if this car has a rather rich race history, just like the rest of the cars that we've been seeing out here on the racetrack. And you're right, I think it was right in about 2010, maybe 2011. Grand Am had a few GT classes, and they were slotting the Cup cars into them and making sure they had proper modifications in order to keep up with all the rest of the cars out there as well. So this is kind of that first iteration of those cars kind of being by themselves over there in Grand Am.
Getting to compete outside of single-make racing around the others, proving themselves, probably with great success since, as you said, Porsche iterated and has had so much running with these cars. They have become pretty darn bulletproof. But as we take a look at the paddock once again, is that a Bugatti Veyron?
Sure looks like it. So, Joe, if you were the valet, which one would you be taking out?
Oh, jeez. Well, I already told you I want the Formula cars. Am I allowed to take one of those?
Well, you got to fit in it.
Yeah. Getting harder and harder these days for me.
Oh, I'm hearing actually word behind the scenes that our producer has his personal car here in this lot. It's this blue Ferrari.
Yeah, that's. I'm curious how much you paid for that one. But quite the parking lot, and of course, there's going to be a lot of cameras out getting pictures. Because how often do you get to see this many legendary cars lined up in a row?
Now, this is a fun one. This is the old Auto House Camaro from Grand Am and GT. So I'm scratching the back of my brain. I believe this car was actually built by Pratt originally, not campaigned by them. And this is a full tube frame Camaro, so it is not a production-based car. This competed in Grand Am GT. I'm very familiar with it because I was competing in GS with Chevrolet at the time, so more of a production-based car. But yeah, this is a really fun purpose-built race car, tube frame, V8, 6-speed sequential gearbox, all the adjustable bars, adjustable everything inside this.
Another one that has a brilliant sound as it goes by you out there on track. And yeah, I noticed that machine as soon as it entered the circuit. But love to see the Camaro brand in racing. And as he comes around, he's going pretty hot, actually.
Yeah, a little bit of a story. Not this chassis, not this specific chassis, but this themed car. I don't know how to say it because it would be the same number and everything. It's just not this specific car. Call it a backup car. Actually had a huge incident at Road America turn number 1 way back in the day. And went up and over the fence at Road America in turn number 1.
Oh, okay. Yeah, one of the few times that somebody actually made it all the way to the wall at the very end of turn 1.
And then over it.
And over, yeah. Was it a stuck throttle? Is that what it happened?
It was a brake failure, and you know what? Very, very lucky that I believe it was Joe Foster directly in front of him in one of the Mazda RX-8s that actually helped slow down the car a little bit before it got to the wall. So unfortunately, 2 cars were involved, but the Auto House car, there wasn't much of it left.
It's a novel way to slow down the car, but yeah, thankfully we still have the drivers still there today as we take a look at another of our 4 GTs. 67 out there with Jeff O'Neill currently running that GTLM machine. I always loved the stylings of these 4 GTs in this era. Just an incredible looking car, and no wonder when they were pulling on the heritage of the original GTs. Those were well known during their heyday back in the 60s, and I think they lived up well to the name.
I think what's most interesting about these cars is that if you see them in person, just the entire, call it rear transaxle assembly, and the bodywork that goes over it, you kind of see how it's got, call it fairings, fenders over those rear wheels, but if you actually walk up to these cars, you see that those rear wheels are pretty much standing by themselves well outside the car. It's just that kind of piece of bodywork from the roof to that rear wheel that's the only connecting part. It's very interesting to see.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, it gets very close to prototype/formula car, the way they set it up. But like I said, a distinctive look because of it, and easily identifiable. One of my favorites personally. He's going to come around for another lap and wrap this one up. And in fact, we are getting ready to wrap this one up. We only have 40 seconds to go.
I'll have to go back and look. An old teammate of mine, buddy Billy Johnson, drove one of these 4 GTs over at Le Mans. I'm not sure which number he was in. I'll have to go see if one of these cars is still out here.
I take that back. We are already getting the checkered flag down on the flag stand. So while the timer did say a bit of time was left, looks like they are going to call it on that one. And we're going to switch gears once again. We had slightly more modern machinery, and Group 2 will be up next. That is the 57 to 63 Formula Junior cars. So definitely my wheelhouse. Stick around because we've still got plenty more to come here at Sonoma Raceway. We're here at the Velocity Invitational at Sonoma Raceway 2026 edition. Sees Group 2 head out onto the circuit, and that is going to be the 57 to 63 Formula Junior vehicle. So lots of open wheelers. And this is, I had mentioned this earlier about our SCCA cars, that this was the era, Joey, where we would have drivers that would go from Formula One and sometimes hop down and compete in these cars. It was basically run wherever you could make a paycheck.
Little bit of a different driver era than it is now, right? No more silly season, right? Just kind of go wherever you feel like it and drive whatever you really want to. And I think that Sonoma Raceway is kind of the picturesque track to take some of those vintage machines out there, because it is one of these flowing tracks and lots of elevation.
And I mean, looking through, we've got some Lolas out there, a lot of Lotus cars, which makes me happy as a fan of the brand. We've got a Brabham I see, as well as a couple Cooper cars out there. So again, big names in Formula racing. Again, down to an era when you also had drivers that not just drove, but built the cars. You look at Jack Brabham, the only driver to win in a car that he made himself in the World Championship. Glad to see that we've got, it looks like the 63 BT6 out there. That's going to be the number 67 car that you'll see. But they're working their way around. And they are going to be very, very basic compared to the Formula cars that you might be used to today. This is in the era before wings became a thing, before downforce was thought of as a positive thing. They tried to make them as sleek as possible, Joey.
Yeah, and, you know, Joe, you can rely on a little bit of my history and information with some of these other run groups, but this one is really going to be your forte over here, and being able to pick out what's what. And because right now, to me, it looks like we got a bunch of cigars driving around this racetrack.
Oh, yes. And they are just now taking to the green flag and starting to head on out. They're not going to corner like we've seen many of the more modern cars, as they don't have that downforce, but the cool thing about them is that they are so sleek, they are so light as well. That's the other thing about this philosophy, is add lightness, as we like to say, means that they would just take off. And that means, and I feel like you'll appreciate this, Joey, it is all about that throttle control. That right foot made the difference for the driver.
And the other thing is, I mean, just look at what the driver can see out of these machines in comparison to what we've got now. Even modern Formula cars are sitting so far down on the ground, and you're really more in a laying position, that the sight lines are actually pretty similar to what a GT car is. They're just much lower down to the ground. But these drivers, they've got the benefit of pretty much being Superman out there. There is nothing in front of them. They can see exactly where those front tires are, and sometimes, even in the mirrors, they can see how fast some of these other cars rapidly approach. It's
quite a bit of difference between a lot of the cars that we have out there, even though it's a pretty similar era for most of them, but you're going to see some significant speed differences between them out there. And the reason that you do see so much of the Lotus brand is they were extremely popular. They didn't just build those Formula One cars, but they built a lot of customer Formula 2 machines, various series that they ran in. Getting some views of some of the minis out there. My dad would definitely appreciate that. He's always been a big fan of the minis.
Lots of Mini Coopers out there underneath the tent. A whole field of them. I wonder how many are going to be out there racing. I see fuel jugs next to every single one of them. So I hope that every single one of these cars is going to be out there and competing. Got to love to see it.
Yeah, I was trying to see. Well, yes, we do have the Mini versus Muscle a little bit later on today. So that probably makes sense that most of them intend to try and give a little bit of a run in that. That should be fun to witness the difference between the old muscle cars versus the old Minis. But for now, it is all open wheelers on the circuit. Back in the late 50s, and early 60s. And even in that era of power under the cars, which is considerably less compared to what we're used to now, they're still running sub 2-minute lap times at this track.
See a couple of family names out there. I see Colasicos are out there, and we always think about the cars and the drivers out here, but got to also remember this is very much a family sport, and what better way to go out there and spend time with the family than go out and race some vintage machines.
And we were talking a little bit about the safety as we had the SCCA cars. This even more so. The philosophy at this time was it's better to be thrown from the car during an accident than it is to be caught inside of it. That was the actual philosophy. So they do not have safety, or they didn't at the time have any safety belts to hold the driver in because they did not want to be in it. The last thing they wanted was to be trapped because they also didn't have any safety cell on the fuel. So fires were a common problem in these vehicles.
I was just noticing one of our drivers, I just mentioned him, the Classica Joe out there, has actually won the Monaco Historic GP,
Ooh.
Also Goodwood Revival, Le Mans Classics, and the Monterey Historics.
Okay, well, how quick is he going right now?
Currently P2.
Okay. It's about 3 seconds off, but we're still very early in this short session. Right now, Hemke is our fastest in his 1962 Cooper T59. It's being chased by the Lotus 22 of Bank. It looks like actually Glasgow got bumped down to third, at least for the moment.
See these cars start to wind themselves up a little bit here on the front straightaway. Now, Joe, I was noticing a couple of these cars when we had shots of them earlier. It almost looks like some of them have, call it same nose and back end. They look very, very similar.
Yeah, exactly. And some of that comes down to just the design philosophy starting to come together before the wings came in. You had a lot of teams that, how much can you do with a cigar tube? So you tend to get very similar looks to them. But there were some various differences. I think the Cooper's often known for having a lot wider intakes. And you'll notice that the nose do have the opening. That was because the radiator is inside the nose of the car, so it is directly sucking in. It's not like you have now where the side pods will pull in to the radiators beside the driver. But also, you may notice that this was at that time that the design philosophy was also changing on the position of the engine. We'll have, I think, at least a couple front engines out there, but most of them, as the 60s started to evolve, became more and more rear engine.
And then, of course, you get that development into what modern-day formula cars are, where everything now is just built around that centrally placed engine. This was that time period that they finally figured it out. And one thing that is fun to watch out here, these things are small, right? They are so small in comparison. What did you say? Add lightness earlier?
Yes.
And part of that is building it as small as you can get it.
Yeah, so there was not a lot in the protection cell for the driver on top of it. But yeah, very interesting to see the sizes of these machines and how they compacted them together. Right now it looks like Art Hebert has taken our quickest lap down to a 151.1, also running a Lola Mark 5A. So not a name that we see as much of out there in this group. We've got a few unique ones. A Huffaker. I'm not actually familiar with that brand. I'll have to look up and find out a little bit about more of that. We have a couple of those running.
I tell you what, I think they would need an extra large shoehorn to get me into one of these. I'm just trying to figure out how I would fit, because it looks like a blast. We're getting word from our producer behind the scenes. Yes, my legs would fit in it. There's no problem about my legs fitting in it. It's the rest of it.
I was going to say the roll bar. The roll bar needs to extend just a little bit. Joey's a wonderful 6'2", I think.
Yeah, about 6'1", 6'2", yeah.
So needs a little bit of space in his race cars.
Tell you what, the arms would look pretty silly out there.
That's your arrow, is they stick out the sides.
Goodness.
But these cars, and that's the thing too, is that I think probably, honestly, the driver's space probably is incredibly comfy compared to what we have now, because you look at how they're almost shaped to the driver. The elbow room probably feels luxurious for any of these drivers that have driven in modern Formula vehicles.
I can only imagine that the driving experience is something amazing, because when you have to kind of climb into something like that, it's almost like putting on a glove, right? And everything is just kind of form-fitted around your body. Every single little piece of a curb. If you roll over some gravel, you hear it, you feel it. So I'm sure just the experience of it is something else.
We've got about 8.5 minutes left on this session, and we've actually been starting to get some blue sky, thankfully, so that's good to see, because it's been kind of gloomy, but as we said, there have been no predicted rain, thankfully, so we should have good weather throughout, but we'd love some sunshine to help warm up the fans out there who have joined us for this fantastic Velocity Invitational weekend. Looks like Marty Bank might be trying to take that fastest lap away. He's set 2 personal bests. I haven't seen any purple, though. Try and go quicker than the Lola that currently tops our timing sheets as we take a look at the number 10. That's a 62 Lotus 22 out there. Lotus, of course, probably most well known for its success around this time in Formula One, from the 60s up to the 70s.
No, I was just looking at, these run groups are obviously specifically classed, and actually those 1960 cars are as early as we get here in this run group.
That's a good point, yeah, because we were scheduled for everything down to 57, but yeah, you're right, 1960 is the oldest that we've got out there.
And you're right, it kind of dominated by the Lotuses, whether it be the 18 or the 22. You see a 27 out there as well. And then also those Coopers. Those Coopers have quite a few cars out there.
Yeah, if you ever get a chance to head down to Birmingham, go to the Barber Museum, where they actually have a collection of the Lotus cars. And that really drives home how many different cars Colin Chapman made back in the day. And that's why we have so many of these. There is a wide swath of them out there. And was just an incredible manufacturer of customer cars for racing. And it's not just in Formula racing. You think about the Caterham cars that have become quite popular. The Lotus 7, obviously very well known as well. So I'm not too shocked that Lotus has been the major factor out here in this class today.
What you're saying is that when there's fewer Lego pieces, it's easier to put them together.
I don't know about easier, but
less time consuming.
Yeah, that's probably a good way to put it. But he definitely had a very great mind for how to make a fast car. Made a dangerous car, I will say that.
Well, I think everybody was back then.
True. Yeah, it probably was not outside of the norm on that front. We're down to the below the 150s at this stage. That Lola at a 149.9. Only car actually under the 150s currently. And there's a few drivers that are whipping these things around. These would be the cars I think I would be most hesitant to try and push to their limit. Even at a modern track.
Oh, Joe, you don't have to worry about anything. You'll keep it on the racetrack out there.
Yeah.
No, I think to go along with that point, it's not just the car itself, but what history has that car gone through?
Mm-hmm. And I'm sure they take care of these things because, I mean, you talk about rare machinery. Yes, I said there's a lot of those Lotus cars out there, but they are
Oh,
a
no.
lot harder to find.
This is my style right here.
Yeah?
So I love interesting vehicles, and I'm going to have to go and take a look at this thing. I think ramp trucks are some of the coolest things out there, and we get ramp trucks here in America, but this is a full-on van toting a race car inside. Yeah, that is my style right there.
With the classic branding. That's what I love to see. In fact, it looked like the lettering. As a letter nerd myself, I was kind of admiring some of the hand-painted lettering that they had on the side of that car. I think that Lola, well, it looked like he was going to set a faster lap, went quickest of anybody in Sector 1, but kind of petered out a little bit later on throughout.
Get some more shots of this van down
is.
here.
Yeah, I love seeing hand-painted letters. I have a huge appreciation for that. And this era, they were all hand-painted. So definitely good look on the side of that old bus. But watching the 27 head around, that's Locke in his 63 Lotus 27, so appropriate number on the side of that machine. And actually in this, I believe it was 63 was one of the more successful years of F1 for Lotus, as well as 65. Honestly, the 60s saw a lot of very well-run cars from that team. Of course, this is all the junior formula. I know we've been talking a lot about Formula One, but these are all the cars that ran in the lower tiers during this time.
Well, and you say the junior formula. Now, the number 18 car out there is specifically listed as a Lotus Junior.
Yeah, exactly. So who's Lotus Senior?
You'd have to ask your puppy.
For those that aren't aware, I am such a fan of Lotus that we named our dog Lotus. So, yes.
Maybe she's Lotus Senior.
Exactly. She did have puppies at one point, so, yeah. But just a couple more minutes left to go here on this one. Oh, and that Lola still going quicker. I think Art is really getting into it now. In fact, yeah, he set the fastest lap of anybody this last time by, down to a 49.245, continuing to extend the gap over the rest of the group. That's in the number 2 car that you're looking for out on track.
Yeah, he's probably up towards the top of the hill right now because he just completed that lap. And, I mean, talk about a smoking lap compared to everybody else. A couple seconds faster than the next fastest time, and compare that to anybody else on the racetrack currently, about 5 seconds faster.
I'm going to try and see if I can find him out on the circuit here. Unfortunately, it looks like our time and scoring will not give us the marching ants like I was hoping. But we've got already a couple cars that have called it. I don't blame the rest of the field for staying out as long as possible, though. Get some time in these machines to really get to experience what it may have been like for the likes of Graham Hill and Jim Clark.
So this is another interesting one. So this 48 car out there, am I reading that right? Yeah, that is the number 48. I'm trying to find him on timing and scoring. Now, Joe, you're going to have to help me with the pronunciation of what Davis is driving here down in 13th place. But typically we see the Formula cars with the engine in the middle, like you were saying, in this time period. But I believe this is a front engine car.
This one is a little beyond my knowledge. Just Stanguellini would be my best stab.
Yeah, that's what I would say.
Yeah. You get to the junior formula, and it is a little bit more hazy for me. Don't have as much knowledge on that front. But I would take a wild guess that it is an Italian brand.
I would think so, too. I think I saw that there's Rob Davis out there in the 48 car as we watch the number 3 car here go around the far side. That is the turn 7 hairpin that we've got here at Sonoma Raceway. And then you blast off down this beautiful S section and it feeds into the very, very fast turn number 9.
Yeah, the main brands or the main nationalities that you would see from this time period is a lot of British ones, obviously, a lot of Italian, and then you would see plenty of French manufacturers as well taking part. German manufacturers weren't quite as prevalent, but then later on you started to see more of them become a factor, as it looks like they're going to call it, and checkered flag is out, so we'll see the Formula cars park it for the time being, but we'll be back with more of them later. In the meantime, we're going to return in just a few minutes with Group 3. That's going to be the 1963 to 1969 production GT cars. So make sure and tune in for more vintage action here at the Velocity Invitational. back. We just saw the Helix take off. Currently above turn 11. An incredible sight. This is a manned drone that they're flying this weekend. Joey, you've been piloting for some years. Would you hop in one of those?
I think that technology is incredible with what has come around. And yeah, this is going to be the next step in, call it, not commercial flight, but private flight, if you will. Yeah. And pretty neat to see it actually in performance out here in front of Sonoma.
It is interesting to watch. It's very smooth seeing it.
I hope it
around.
Would be.
Yeah. Almost looks very calm the way it's just kind of floating around the circuit. Bit of a demonstration run that we get to see this through the air as it comes back to us right in front of us, in fact, here in the commentary booth. You can even see the pilot working away inside the cockpit as he heads back towards pit lane.
Pretty neat to see this thing. You know, obviously a rotorcraft flight and it being a drone-based flight, you know, but obviously using some aerodynamics and some wings to help this thing around. And, yeah, I'm very impressed.
It's my first time actually seeing one of these fly in person.
I feel like I'm watching the Wright brothers out here. Like an old-timey announcer talking into the, this is the first time we've seen flight out here in California. You know what's missing, Joe? We have 3 of them.
You want to race them?
Let's put some more numbers on the side. I see this one 049. I see some cones down here that we could set up. I think we could definitely get a race going on.
Yeah, in fact, you can go and check out one of these close up as well. Once again, in the paddock. I know I'm going to be harping on this a lot, but you got to get down there and check out all that's available. So you can kind of see what this looks like close up. Looks like he's just doing a couple laps, honestly, heading around here between turns 11 and down towards the S's.
And you do have to be careful here at Sonoma, given low altitude flight. You got to remember these grandstands are right here, and then also, as Colby knows quite well, a lot of these light poles are right here in front of us.
Do not want to hit a light pole. That's easier than you would think, as I think he's coming into land, it looks like. Bringing it back around.
I am curious about this part. It was able to take off vertically incredibly easily. But this is always the most difficult part about flying in aviation.
We're both just kind of entranced watching this thing come down. Gently sets it, and there it goes.
I think what's kind of interesting for me is that if I was sitting in that thing and you're landing it, you're pretty much looking straight at the sky.
I noticed that too.
Yeah, very interesting. And I see on our timing and scoring now that the drone has landed. Looks like we're going to be getting a green flag on this session, so we'll be getting race cars out on the racetrack shortly.
Tell you what, we were watching the modern C7 Corvette. How about a 1963 Corvette? Got a few of those out there. And 1965 as well. My mother-in-law actually collects Corvettes, so I can only imagine she would be absolutely thrilled. But it's more than that. We've got a Porsche 910. There's a Lotus Elan, an Alpine A110. So there's a few different variety of cars. If you missed it earlier, this is the 63 to 69 production GT cars and 1963 and 1972 FIA Manufacturers Championship. I don't know exactly what they mean by that one in addition there, but this is essentially sports car racing from the 60s that we're getting to have a look at as our pilot hops out. Looks about as easy to get out of as most Formula cars.
I like that. Yeah. Was really cool to see that thing flying around, but now we've got the race cars out on the racetrack. I was extremely impressed by some of these Corvettes that rolled out. I want to say it was that gray number 18 that was kind of first up out of the group. It just kind of reminded me of an old hoss out there about to go and rip his V8 around.
Now, I have got to, and maybe you know more about this, I have never seen this. What is a 1964 Porsche Platypus?
Jeremy?
That's why we have our contacts at Porsche, because we cover their single make series. I don't see him around right now. We'll have to text him, see if Jeremy has any information behind the scenes. That is a name I've never heard of.
I've never heard, I know of all the old school slant noses, and various different iterations of cars. But, yeah, that is the number 7 car that at least I'm looking to try to find to see what it actually looks like out there. But it is a name that I have not seen or I'm not familiar with.
And I just want to say, and I wish we could kind of go back to this in a way, is bless the old times of racing where they had big numbers on the sides of the car so we can actually read the majority of them from up here and tell which car we're looking at. May we return to that to help the poor commentators and fans out.
Well, now that our kind of course clearing lap is complete, we are really hearing those different engine notes, and I do hear a lot of V8s out there.
I mean, no surprise with the Corvettes circulating. We also have a 72 Gulf Mirage. That is a fantastic car.
This, I believe, is the 81 that we've got here on our screens going down through turn number 4. This is a 1972 Chevron B21, currently down in 18th place.
This is an era of prototype racing as well that saw some wild designs start to come out. So you'll see that the late 60s into the early 70s saw incredible experimentation.
And this is kind of, so we were talking about those formula cars earlier, and everything is taken out of them, right? As we've got a full course yellow, we'll find out exactly what happened out there on the racetrack. But getting to my point out here, Joe, is that watching those formula cars, it was all about taking the weight out of the car. Now, this run group has a lot of big motors, a little bit of a different kind of speed.
Exactly. So I'm going to take a stab, and again, this is speculation, but that we may have had a stoppage out on track. Unfortunately, this era also known for reliability not being the greatest. So we could have maybe had a car that has had an issue, needs to be cleared.
Yeah, and I'm just waiting to see if our cameras pick up anything or see anything out on the racetrack that is causing this full course yellow. They have the red flag. I should say they have the black flag here in this session to designate that all of the drivers must enter pit lane and come down to the front of the grid essentially to restart the session. But we have yet to see this happen here this morning.
We have...
there it is. It's actually right here in front of us once again, Joe. All we had to do is look out the window. And it seems like some people, the track workers, are picking up some debris from the front straightaway.
Okay, so hopefully that'll mean a very quick pause. And I'm getting a little bit of an image.
It looked like a
sandwich board, kind of, honestly.
I mean, it looked like an entire hood almost.
Yeah. That was strange. Well, we'll try and resolve that mystery in a bit. I mean, it definitely could be possible that something was not secured down on one of the cars and slipped off. Be odd that it wound up on that side of the track since it would have fell to the outside of the final turn. I did notice this when we came in. One thing that you want to check out is there's some beautiful art on the ground over by the Porsche tent, actually. That's down in the paddock. This is close to turn 1. Between turns 1 and 2, actually, if you want to go and check that out. I actually had a very good view of it because we come up to our tower here, and so I could kind of see it from above. You'll get a nice close-up view if you head down and check it out in person.
Now we have the green flag back out on the racetrack, so I was very happy to see that it was not an incident by any means, you know. And something that has caught my eye, I think I might have found the culprit. It might be the number 73 car that had an issue because I see some bodywork sticking up, and he's one of the cars that has been pulled over right here at pit exit.
Yeah, it did look like a white piece that they were collecting, so I think you might be right on that one. Looking at all these Corvettes, I do love seeing the Stingray backing on the rear windows. Just gorgeous styling on these cars, and again brings back an era where philosophies were just a bit different than now, that they did consider the visual stylings and how they created these cars.
Yeah, these cars can be pretty fun to watch out there. As I'm watching some stuff roll by our commentator booth out here. And I think I actually found it. I think it was the piece. It's not a firewall, but it's basically a fiberglass cover that would be covering up the open area of the cockpit, and that certainly makes sense.
Okay. Yeah, that seems a little bit more clear now. All right, so let's hopefully get to see these cars get more up to speed now at this stage. We don't even have any times that were set by this point. But coming through the S's, as we talked about all the different types were out there. An Alpine, we've got many Corvettes, Gulf Mirage as well. Joey mentioned the Chevrons that we've got out there. There's also a few Lotus cars, a Lotus Elan, a Sunbeam Tiger as well, the 51 out there running. Porsche 910 also on track.
This is the 88 machine rolling through what is turn number 9.
That's that Porsche 910 that I was talking about.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Going to be coming by us here on the front stretch in just a moment. In fact, the 37 as well, another Porsche 910. So that's a 67, and the 88 also a 67. So same make, just with a little bit of different liveries on it.
So you were talking about some of these formula cars and, you know, how many they produced. I think some of the coolest pictures to me of historic racing, especially, you know, overseas at Le Mans, a lot of what these, call it Porsche 910s, and then the subsequent evolutions of them, what were created to be, and seeing them essentially in a wooden garage, you know, and having 6 or 8 of them all half apart, you know, and really what is underneath that thing. It is super cool to see those vintage photos, and not only the photos of them being built and then raced, but they still exist out here, and getting to watch them go around this racetrack.
And since you mentioned Le Mans, we can't stress enough, especially in these types of cars, how much of an influence that had on the design. Obviously, you could see very sleek looking. They were looking for straight line speed because that track is pretty much all long straights, especially back in that area. This is before they added many of the twisty S's and the chicanes in it that slow the cars down. So it was a test of straight line speed, and of course, as you mentioned earlier, how much grunt do you have underneath it?
Yeah, it transitioned from, okay, yeah, we got to take all the weight out of the car. Now that we've made the car light, how do we make it go even faster? Well, let's shove the biggest engine we can possibly fit into this little itty-bitty car, and yeah, all of a sudden they were doing 200 miles an hour.
Just incredible. On 60s technology as well. Curious about this 09, because I don't recognize it. It's a Lotus 23C potentially, I think, if I'm looking at it right.
So you're looking for the 09, you said.
But I only see a 9 out on our timing and scoring with Polk behind the wheel. Matthew Polk. That's him on screen right now.
And it is the other 9 that I see is a 9A, but that is a 1966 Ford GT40, so not going to be that one. But yeah, I'll have to try to do a little bit of research, try to figure out what this thing is as well.
Boy, that Chevron with Tony Delane behind the wheel just suddenly smashed the fastest lap time by 3.7 seconds. So that's the 81 that we were watching earlier, that bright red prototype car. And we're starting to see more of our Formula machines come around inside the paddock as well. That's going to be another of our Formula, not juniors, but Formula B group this next time. And if you're looking for the paddock, you need to just try and find Velocity Lane is what we will pull these machines into and display before they head on out. See 2 white picket fences and all kinds of beautiful cars lined up ready to go.
I was able to do a little bit of research on that 09. It is registered as the number 9 on timing and scoring, not the 09, and that is a 1965 Lotus 23C. So a little bit more of a sports racer in comparison to the Formula cars that we were seeing.
It looks like something out of Speed Racer, honestly.
Especially those rear taillights. I mean, the rear end of the car looks very ahead of its time.
Yeah, very, very Mach 5-esque, this old Lotus. A unique look. And once again, Tony Delane is flying out there, has 2 purple sectors. Just saw the number 11 go by. That's another of our Lotus. That's the Sparling Special, Ferrari Special, actually. So that was not a Lotus. I thought that was a Lotus that we had out there. Maybe it's a different car that I was looking at. Got a little bit of a yellow flag on the front straight currently. So somebody may be going a little bit slowly out there. And Delane has cut it down now to a 1:41.7, 5 seconds faster than everybody else out there.
Ooh, now we're mixing a couple of my favorites. I see a nice E61 group head espresso machine and a nice grinder on the back of what looks to be a custom VW bus out there. Yeah, it looks like it's a little bit of, they have 2. Those are 2 rocket machines, it looks like, those espresso E61s.
Well, I know where Joey's going when we get lunch a little bit later. But all kinds of fun goodies down there in the paddock that you can check out, besides if you're not as interested in cars. But looks like we've been cut into a little bit on our time because of that red flag, but thankfully we've gotten plenty of running in. But the 72, the latest defined problems.
And this is coming up the hill to turn number 2. And thankfully, I'll say this, that the driver can clearly see what is coming up the hill at him. So as long as he can refire the car, he's got clear visual to be able to rejoin the racetrack. You see him rolling back.
This is an interesting one because obviously we've had a lot of Formula cars and sports cars. This is actually the rally version of the Alpine that we're looking at. This is the 72
in the grass.
A110. Yeah, well, there you go. You solved the mystery. He was trying to test it out, make sure that it still lived up to its heritage.
Oh, goodness. It definitely seems like the car is not fired, right? I would expect him to have at least pulled it back out onto the racetrack if it had life in it. So I think that the car may be just having a little bit of a mechanical issue, and that's why it is pulled off the side of the racetrack.
Exactly. But they're letting it play out for now. They haven't stopped the session yet. So everybody's still racing. I guess he is well within everybody's visual coming into that corner. And since I think they have a standing yellow flag right now, so they know to just kind of play it cautious into there. And we can keep on racing and not have to worry as much. I say that as McAllister, Alex has managed to move his Ford GT up into second now, still well far away from that fastest lap time. Yeah, and I can hear cars slowing into turn 1, so I think they're just making sure everybody just eases up on that part of the lap while they can carry on going quickly for the remainder of it.
I think I see another familiar name to me out there, Patrick Byrne in that number 17 car. As we getting some shots of the Yokohama activation setup that we've got here at Sonoma Raceway, and have some beautiful Porsche cars on display, and of course a wonderful plethora of tires. Now, we use all of the Yokohama tires and all of the Sprint Challenge, Endurance Challenge, and USA West series here with Porsche Motorsport.
Exactly. And if you are interested in the Sprint Challenge drivers, as we get another visual of the 72 still backing up here, we do have an autograph session tomorrow. That'll be at 11 a.m., and that'll be at the Yokohama Activation Rig. So they will have a special race poster celebrating 5 years of the USA West Series. Make sure and head on over to the Yokohama Rig on Saturday at 11 a.m. for autographs from the drivers.
Now, I'm going to try to be Sherlock Holmes over here. That car that we had stopped in turn number 1, I don't think it came from turn number 1, Joe. I actually think it came from the carousel section. Being on the access road, I think that he pulled it, call it, cross-track, and has parked it after he had a little bit of an issue. And I think that kind of puts my heart a little bit more at ease as well.
Yeah, that it wasn't some sort of spin, potentially. Car just maybe had a bit of a failure. As we said, these are not cars known for their reliability during this time. The endurance racing that they did, if anything, were a test of that. They were trying to see which manufacturer made a car that could truly last all the way to the end, whether that be 8 hours, 12 hours, or 24 hours. I think we're getting close to the end of this session now at this stage.
Not 24 hours left in this one.
No.
It's only about a minute and a half, just under a minute and a half remaining before we clear these cars off of the racetrack. And then what do we got coming up next over here, Joe? I've really been enjoying the different cars and really the different groups between the production cars, the sedan cars, and the Formula cars.
We're sticking in the same era. It's 66 to 71 Formula B group. So similar to our Formula Junior cars, these are going to be a little bit more recent, a little bit more powerful, but just as cool. So make sure and hang around if you want some more of our Formula racing. Oh boy, wow, look at the the 35 was wheeling that thing down through turn 4.
I believe that's Nick Finberg out there in that number 35 car. And driving a 1967 Constant, it cuts off the name for me, but a Nathan GT is what it looks like out there.
Yeah, that's the full name, 67 Costin Nathan GT. Again, I'm not as familiar with that brand of car.
Well, and, I was mentioning a driver before we peeked over at the goodies that Yokohama had, but Patrick Byrne. Now, Patrick is one of these younger drivers that hit the scene and went over, raced prototypes, I believe, over in Asian Le Mans. He's actually from my neck of the woods up in the Pacific Northwest area, so great to see him out here at Velocity Invitational weekend.
Checkered flag is out. We're going to wrap up our latest session, but again, we've got plenty more to come this morning and all afternoon. If you missed us just a moment ago, the 1966 to 71 Formula B group coming up in just a couple minutes, so stick around. More on-track action here at Sonoma Raceway for the Velocity Invitational in 2026. And as the Formula cars take to the track, we get a look at some of the less track vehicles down in pit lane and in the paddock, including a VW bus. Along with, is that an old Bronco?
Yes, it is. It is an old Bronco. It's a pair of old Broncos that I see out there. So pretty cool. Not just the hypercars and supercars and whatnot, but also have the fun buses. Have some fun espresso machines out there that we saw, and also some off-roaders.
Curious if someone brought the new VW electric bus to go along with the.
Did you call your parents?
That's why I was bringing it up, because my parents just got one, so they love it. I think it's actually pretty cool. But we are currently running the 1966 to 71 Formula B group. Another of our decently sized groups with 23 cars out there, but I mean, such classic names as the Brabham cars, the BT21, the BT29. You've got Lotus cars. The 69B is out there currently. We've got a McLaren running, a 1967 M4, but then you've got maybe some of the lesser-known ones. The Winkleman is running, along with another of our Chevron cars currently. A Legrand Mark III, a 1966 version of that car. So you've got plenty of type. Now we're to the point where the stylings of the cars are going to be a lot closer to one another as they start to converge here in the late 60s, early 70s.
And I think out of the names that stand out, did you mention the Merlin?
I did not.
Merlin Mark 21 out there, and then also a 1971 Hawk DL6B. So to go in addition with all the Brabhams, the Chevrons out there, have a few of the more individual cars as well.
You can see that we're getting a little bit of the side pods starting to show up in some of the cars. So there are some stylings that start to break out as the cars evolve and the designers start to learn more. Let's see how fast these things can go.
Well, and just visually, right, Joe? I mean, you compare this group to the Formula group that we had out there, about a half hour ago or so? And look at how much lower these cars are to the ground in terms of the ride height. You don't get the roly-poly-oly nearly as much anymore watching these cars lean through the corners. They seem much more into the racetrack rather than on top of it.
Very much so. And yeah, even though there's still relatively soft suspension compared to modern day, it's definitely, like you said, a lot stiffer. I did see that Legrand out there as well. Very interesting looking car. It's the 88, and we might see it come by relatively soon here, but very boxy in comparison to a lot of our other machines that we have out here. As you can see, they very much streamlined a lot of these cars, very smooth lines on these machines, as they're all about trying to maximize the straight line speed, while at the same time, like you said, make them low to the ground and nimble.
I have to chuckle a little bit because the only car that I know that's a Le named car is a LeSabre. So I
never had a Le car?
No, I haven't. So I think that this Legrand is going to be quite fun to watch out there, and actually going to be turning a competitive lap time here relatively soon as we watch this group come up and over what is turn number 2 at the racetrack here. And you had mentioned it maybe about 15 minutes ago or so, but yeah, we're getting a little bit of sunshine now, aren't we?
Yeah, it's broken through the clouds. We still see quite a few of them up above, but it's getting more and more clear. And yeah, I think that 88's going to come by. I just want you to get a closer look at it, Joey, because it is a weird-looking car, if I'm honest. Hopefully we'll get visual in front of us here shortly, because I think yeah, there it is.
You know what it kind of reminds me of, Joe? Kind of a derby, a boxcar derby car with an engine in it.
I was going to say Pinewood Derby, honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a very unique look, but as we watch them head around the hairpin once again, back into the S's. Lap times in the early stages already into the 142s for these cars. Kyle Collins right now the quickest. Oh, make that Rodney Grabinski. Just jumped him down to a 140.6.
These things are moving. They're moving pretty good around this racetrack here. So the more modern we get with these cars, a little bit more speed comes out with them, and really fun. And I think this is the first group that I've heard more of a Formula car sound out there as they're going by. Yeah.
Yeah. The very, very high revs that they like to run as we get a look at what seems to be the Ford camp here with a couple of the GTs on display, modern race cars, and it looks like they've got a few of the road versions of that car sitting behind it.
Yeah, lots of Ford GTs out there, which was really neat to see. And then, of course, those race car versions right up front that raced over at Le Mans. So, yeah, always neat to see. You got to remember the Ford GT has been around since the 60s, and I understand, Joe, there's a little something going on the racetrack.
Full course yellows being shown. Last time that happened, there was a piece of debris on the circuit that they needed to pause and grab. So let's hope that everything's okay out there. We don't have any visual on anything distinct happening in our eyesight right now.
Yeah, and I'm looking through these drone shots as well, seeing if we can find anything that is visual that we can see out there. But don't see anything. I'll take a look out the window like I didn't do last time, and don't see anything on the front straightaway here. So evidently I see a safety truck pulling out into the S's section, maybe a little bit here down towards us.
Now, we have what looks to be one of our marching ants on our track map paused, and I think somewhere around turn 11 or so, potentially. And apologies, sir, hearing that is not going to be accurate. But, yeah, we have a safety vehicle moving over just on the exit of the S's around turn 9. I think there was a car maybe.
Yes.
Oh, it's parked by the wall.
Okay.
They were so low we could not see it behind the wall. Wow.
That's exactly what it is. So
I hope they didn't run into it.
Yeah, they're already talking to the driver. The driver is climbing out of the car right now, which we can see on the screens, and that is the most important part. Talking with our track workers, and the driver seems to be okay.
That's the good news. Let's everybody give it up for our drivers this weekend. Very glad that they're willing to get out there and and wheel these things around, as well as for our safety workers. A huge thank you. Without them, we would not be able to do some awesome runs and go racing today when we get back to the Porsche Sprint Challenge. Yeah, that car is so close to the wall. I am worried that maybe he did wind up actually making contact there, but let's hope that that he's just maybe pulled it over to the side as far away from the track as he could go.
I think the unfortunate clue is the slide marks coming through the grass.
Oh, yeah.
Here on our screen, the car really does not look like it's been hard into the wall at all. So I don't think that there's significant issues with the car. It is just a matter of making sure that everything is safe, ready to be picked up, and retrieved back to the paddock. I mean, the front right suspension isn't even folded in. Like, it doesn't look like there's much damage to this thing. It just looked like a pretty wild ride.
Yeah, and they're pulling the tow truck up, so they're going to get it on the hook. We'll maybe get a little bit of a better look. That's going to interrupt the session. We might get a few minutes to wrap this one up. Let's hope so. I do love seeing these old Formula cars running, especially around Sonoma.
One of the convenient parts about having a really small and really lightweight car is back the hook up to it and simply just pick it up.
Should have an easily accessible roll bar as well, so they're slowly doing their work down there. Everybody else has pulled it into pit lane in front of us, waiting patiently. I think I see that McLaren that we were talking about a little bit earlier. No, excuse me. That looks to be a Brabham in McLaren colors, weirdly, which is why I was confused.
Well, I mean, look at how easy this tow truck was able to pick up that small Formula car. I mean, it is already up off of the ground.
How well balanced is now the question.
Well, I mean, the corner worker is not even really holding it.
Yeah.
Maybe this one by the left rear wheel a little bit to stabilize the car. But it already looks like our safety crew has done a tremendous job retrieving it at least out of the wall.
Got about what's showing as 9 minutes left, so as long as they can gently pull that off and out of the way, we should be able to get moving pretty quickly. They do have an opening just before turn 10. They might be able to sneak through, or they could just take it right back to the pit lane. We'll see what they decide as the driver finds a seat next to the tow truck driver.
I think what they're simply doing right now is just stabilizing the car because it's on a big swing, right? It's just kind of hanging up in the air off of the hook, so they're just going to stabilize the back end of the car with what I assume is some basic straps, so that way if it starts to twist one way, the other will tension, and it'll be nice and safe to transport.
For those wondering what other types of cars we have coming later today, after this one, we're going to be going with Classic IMSA. So that's 72 to 80. That'll be a wild ride as well. And then if you enjoy cars that mostly turn left, stick around for noon because we have 1981 to 2013 historic NASCAR stock cars. I am really looking forward to that. Love seeing those old machines. And as we talked about a bit ago, the autograph session tomorrow for the Porsche Sprint Challenge drivers is going to be at the Yokohama Activation Rig. So make sure and check that out. In fact, we are going to have podium ceremonies for those drivers at one point, both Saturday and Sunday. We'll have 2 races today for the USA West Series, or not today, rather, this weekend, I should say, that they'll be competing. A little bit later today, and in fact, the Porsche Cup practice session going to be at 12:50. That'll be right after lunch if you want to see them back on track. But we'll be also getting some more production GT cars from the 50s and 60s a little bit after lunch. We'll go back to the SCCA sedans, getting some run time. And then later in the day, around 5 p.m., the Mini versus Muscle display is going to be happening. That'll be at 5 p.m. and then at 5:40 p.m. They'll have 2 runs. They'll have the Minis on track as well as classic muscle cars such as Mustangs, Camaros, and whatnot, showing the differences between the 2 different cars on track and where they find their speed. As it looks like we got cars lined up. We're getting ready to go again.
Just waiting for that car to fully exit the racetrack. I'm sure everybody saw the pictures of it on the tow truck, and so it has been retrieved. All of the safety vehicles are exiting the racetrack, and it looks like we've got a green flag one more time. So time to drop it into gear and let these Formula cars have about 5.5 more minutes of fun out on the racetrack.
That's enough time to do a little bit of wheeling about here. We got to get those tires right back up to temperature and on their way. As we watch them crest over turn 2, you could see how much everybody was very eager. Just noticed that they had a big patch at turn 2, so it seems like they did a little bit of work on the track. At least I don't remember seeing that last time we were here, just about a month or so ago.
And one really cool name that is out there currently driving that number 83 car is Jeff Brabham. Yes, the Brabham family.
I did not realize we actually had Jeff here. Fantastic. I mean, we talked about how we got classic IMSA stuff. Well, he was very well known for his time racing in IMSA in the late 80s.
And, of course, son of Jack Brabham. So, yeah, not only does Jeff an extremely decorated racing car driver himself, but from the Brabham family.
Matty Brabham, now
Yes.
The next generation racing. So carrying on the legacy of an incredibly storied family. And actually very well storied over here in North America as well. Obviously Australian originally, but a lot of them have run over here in the States pretty frequently over the years.
Matty Brabs, as I know him. The
Have
youngest.
you got to work with him?
Yes. Yeah,
Oh, okay.
He was a teammate of one of my best friends for a long time, Shelby Blackstock. So yeah, I got to hang out with Matt quite often, and a little bit earlier on in his career, and he has since gone on and done some phenomenal stuff.
Watching the number 9 currently. That's speaking of Brabham, a BT18 that we've got Kyle Collins running in, and he definitely seems to be hustling it pretty decently. It's getting some speed up as he bounces over the curb down at turn 4, plunges into 5, looking to try and set himself up. Going to be a bit of a blind crest here into turn 6, the carousel. And he looks very comfortable in that car.
I think this will be a little bit of a fun, interesting session to see what these drivers do, because got to remember, you're going out here and you're turning laps, having fun at the Velocity Invitational weekend, but it's almost turned it into like a little miniature qualifying session with the red flag, right? You had a little bit of a warm-up to see the racetrack, and now the majority of the track time kind of gets taken away from the session, so the drivers want to go out there and make the most of the last 3 minutes.
Yeah, and there's nothing on the line. There's no competition out here, but we know race car drivers. Everybody wants to be the fastest, so there's going to be some bragging rights that everybody wants to try and earn this weekend.
Watching the number 9 car. Now, there are a couple number 9s. I see a 9 and a 9A out there as well, but I believe this is Kyle Collins coming through. Going to put down a new lap time, and that new lap time is the fastest lap time in the group, a 138.5.
Now, I wonder if that, I think I got confused earlier because I said that I saw a McLaren and then corrected myself that it was a Brabham. So I think it was a McLaren that I saw because, yeah, that is the 9A out there, and that is the M4. Easiest way to spot those is because they have that papaya orange. Ooh, yeah.
I think that was a little bit of a spin coming out of our far hairpin down there at turn number 7.
Like we said, extremely light car with some decently chunky tires on it, but they also have a huge amount of power underneath them. So it is easy coming off the corners to light them up and send her around.
Of course, these cars well before any sort of driver aids, and that includes most aerodynamics out there. So absolutely no electronics in these cars whatsoever to help out the drivers. It is all up to their right foot when they decide to apply the horsepower.
And something we take for granted as well is that modern engines have been so well tuned.
Yes.
That the rev range on these cars, they might give better power under certain conditions. So I know, for example, though we don't see one this weekend, the Lotus 49 was notorious for low-end revs not giving the greatest of oomph, but as soon as it kicked over, I think it was about 6,000 RPM, suddenly it just lit up and would take off. So drivers had to be careful about how that ran. And they probably have a few of those cars here this weekend with similar experiences where you kind of have to know the ins and outs of your machine if you're going to really drag it around this circuit.
Where the power band is, what the gearing is, how to drive it in its optimal range in order to make it go as fast as possible. And we're about to get a checkered flag out here. Actually look and see our start-finish stand has the checkered flag displayed already as we get a little bit more of these Formula cars ripping around Northern California.
That wraps up our slightly truncated session for the Formula cars here in Group 4. Up next is Group 6. That's 1972 to 1980 IMSA GT, GTX, AA GT, and FIA Group 4. Stick around for more fun here at Sonoma Raceway. 6 now on the track here at Velocity Invitational. But off in the pit lane, once again, we see all kinds of cool cars. So make sure and head on over there to the paddock and check out all the cars on display. This one is going to be classic IMSA from the 70s up into 1980. We all have all kinds of very cool Porsche 911 Carrera cars out there. I also see some Corvettes returning, along with the BMW that we have on screen. And a few that definitely interest me, the Toyota Celica is out there racing.
Yeah, some pretty cool machines. Now, just before we got to the action on the racetrack, we had our cameraman, Turner, back over there covering some of our amazing cars down on pit lane. And that old vintage machine looks to be made back in 1919 and competed in the Indy 500, Joe.
Ah, there we go.
I thought you would like that little note there.
Yes.
Yeah, minutes before the 1919 Indy 500. Still 2 people in the car.
Yeah, that was the time of riding mechanics before they decided, actually, it's probably better if we just put one person in the car. It'll be lighter, and we'll just bring them back in a pit lane if we have an issue. But meanwhile, on track, we talked about the Porsches. In fact, Porsche's incredibly popular out there. We've got at least a dozen that are mixed into this group. And now we are finally getting into the stage where aerodynamics start to be discovered, and you see all types of incredible shapes on these cars.
It's a fun era, I call it, because we kind of knew what was going on, right? We kind of understood, all right, if we make the wing a little bit bigger, if we make it a little bit closer to the ground, it helps with the ground effect in the front end downforce. So we knew what was going on. We didn't really have a great way to test it, so we just kind of had to build it and see what happened. Yes,
it's not the computational dynamics that we have today, so it was all kind of seeing where the airflow was. They had their methods. If you've ever seen the pictures of attaching little pieces of string all over the car, they could kind of visualize what the airflow was doing. But you're right that it was a lot of guesswork and just people that actually knew what the air was doing, but didn't necessarily know what the best way to utilize it was. So as we watch that classic BMW GP2 come around, that's the 74 that we've got Johnson currently in the 103.
Another reason why this era, and especially kind of getting a little bit newer than this, but it definitely developed into this era, turbochargers.
Yes.
I absolutely love vintage turbo racing because it was kind of another one of those things that we understood. The more air that we can pack into the engine, the faster it goes. And all of a sudden, turbochargers were being bolted on. All of a sudden, we were building one-piece engines to completely seal the head in. That way it doesn't lift the head up off of the block. So the more air we could pack into the engines, the faster it went.
And again, another thing that's different from today, we've got all kinds of aids that help eliminate turbo lag. You did not have this back then, and drivers of that era would talk about how they would get on the throttle, but as soon as that turbo would kick in, oh my goodness, would it go, and it'd be a beast to hold on to.
You know what turbo lag is, right?
Yeah, so
that
air
needs
to
anticipation for what's about to happen. Yes, no, but that's exactly, yeah, you're right, is that all of a sudden, there's nothing, and then boom, it just hits you.
Took a very special skill, I can imagine, to really drive these cars to its limit and be ready for that to start to kick in. I'm actually curious how recent we do go on this, because it does seem like we don't quite reach, no, we do reach the 80s, excuse me, because we've got that Celica out there. But for the most part, we go all the way back to 1968 for some of these Corvettes, and for the most part, it looks like mid-70s for the majority of these cars. We do have a 79 Datsun out there, the 280ZX with Link currently, Steve Link in that number 11 machine.
But yeah, I'm there with you. It's really, call it the heart of the mid-70s there. Lots of Porsches. Got, like you said, to have that 1979 Datsun. Now, we've been seeing the Datsun 510s, right? But this is one of the Z cars, one of the 280Z cars that is out there, completely different shape. And then, yeah, a little bit older Corvettes out there that I'm still seeing romping around.
They've lost the Stingray back to them at this stage, but still very iconic look to that car. As we watch one of our Porsches get chased by the BMW down the back straight into turn 7. That is the car number 7 of Healy and his 911 Carrera.
Patrick Byrne just went fastest in the 1977 Corvette, 141.9.
Yeah, now the lap times are starting to get closer to what we see during today's racing, at least with the similar cars. Of course, the Formula cars were getting down to these times, but you'd expect them to be a little bit quicker.
I caught that one too, the number 6 car. Yeah, it looks like Rick Jeffrey is driving, and it's a 1976 Decon Monza.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with that one, but boy, did it rumble as it went by, and certainly had an interesting look to it. And again, you get all the different philosophies on the aero on machines of this time, so many times you'll get cars that will look nothing like their counterparts, trying to maybe break out, do something different, gain an edge. It was still very much the Wild West on the rules many times.
Seeing the 42 here, that's actually a really fun car that's driven by Ranson Webster out there. Now, this is a slant nose car, and it's a 935, and the 935s, I was talking about turbochargers, very much known for how much horsepower they made. Look at the flame come out the back end of that thing. That's just a whole bunch of unburnt fuel.
I thought they had tied a yellow rag to the end of it. That's what, it was crazy how much flame was coming off of that thing. But, yeah, and again, going back to the stylings of the aero of the car, look at those wheel fenders on the rear. Just, I mean, gosh, it sticks out farther than what we saw on the Ford GT earlier on.
And so I am, call it a wheel, I'll call it a wheel fanatic, right? I love my wheels. I was pointing out the wheels. I believe it was on that Dallara a little bit earlier. And one of the things I love about these, call it 70s race cars and into the 80s, they all had the turbofan covers, right? So on the wheels, they have an extra piece that is outside of the spokes, and it's actually a finned wheel cover. It looks like a wheel dish that's painted pink on this car, and it's actually to help promoting airflow, getting the brakes cool.
Ah, I always wondered about that. Interesting. So as we see him come down towards the S's section here, and he is cooking. That car is going at a good rate of knots, and I could see him have to slow down here for turn 10 there before he now has to completely slam on the brakes to try and take 11. Now watch it spool up as it absolutely shoots away out of the hairpin.
I had mentioned I'm from the Pacific Northwest, and it reminds me of a car from up there. Monty Shelton had a 935 turbo that he competed in for a very long time, and to watch that car rip down the straightaways there at Portland International Raceway was tons of fun, and it's definitely bringing back memories watching that 935 out there.
This is up into turn 2, the 48 giving chase. I feel like that livery might be significant, because I actually recall having a car, like a little Hot Wheels or Matchbox car in that same exact livery, and I'm trying to remember if there was something to that 48.
Well, I'll tell you what, it's not the Skoal Bandit.
No?
It's not that car. Different manufacturer, but yeah, definitely an individual livery chasing down what is the 71 car out there. I believe that is a 68 Corvette that I see.
And I feel like that is one of those telling things that even after all these years, you know, these cars from our childhood, we remember having the toy of it, the poster of it, how much these things are ingrained in our head. And that's, again, why some of these events are so important. We get to relive those memories, seeing these cars get out and actually race in person.
Now, forgive me, because that's definitely not, at least on timing and scoring that I see. Honestly, that looks a little bit more like one of the Z cars that's out there versus a Corvette shape, but a nice little trio going through the S's.
Yeah, I was trying to figure that out with the 71. It's listed as a 68 Chevrolet Corvette. That cannot be a 68 Corvette. Maybe there's a different 71 out there, or just some sort of timing error. I'm trying to figure out what that 71 is.
Yeah, me too. I'm a little embarrassed that I haven't been able to really pinpoint it out, but cool-looking car. But I'm with you that some of these more identifiable cars, that Toyota that's been ripping around, that one you've seen in a lot of magazines, I'm sure.
I need to find the 44 as well, because there's a Triumph out there. I actually didn't know that Triumph raced in IMSA. So it was a GTO from 79 running the TR8, and that type of car is always very special to me. My father worked on an MG and collected MGs when he was younger. So those style of British sports cars are always close to my heart. And Triumph, obviously, very close to those. Remember seeing a whole bunch of them at the British Car Show growing up. So keep an eye out, see if we can spot that one in the last few minutes that we've got, with about 6 minutes left to go here.
Now this is a Corvette, the red machine giving chase here on this number 48 car, and I believe that is the 40 of Patrick Byrne, who is our fastest in the session so far, driving the 1977 Greenwood Corvette. And we were mentioning some of the sounds that are coming out of these cars throughout the weekend. That Corvette, that red Corvette, definitely has one as well.
Just an incredible rumble each and every time they come by us here. Thankfully, a lot of great viewing spots here around the track, but if you can get a chance to get up close and do so safely, please do. It's just so neat to feel it in your chest when some of the cars roar past you.
Call it about 5 minutes remaining here. Here's another one of these cars that has developed a lot of aero. I believe that was the number 22 car, driven by Tom Linton. And of course, that is an older Porsche 914. Now, those 914s, when they were in their stock form, maybe not necessarily a whole lot to look at or go around the racetrack real fast, but the enthusiasts quickly found out once you start modifying them and taking a lot of the weight out, they go real fast.
It'll always remind me of back when I was younger playing Forza 2. That was one of the first cars that you got in the game, and learning how to drive that thing in the sim. But very cool looking, not looking like many other Porsches out there. Definitely unique, like such as this one we have, which is the 46, much more traditional Porsche shape for the ST from 1970.
And since you're talking about it, I love the DuckTales, right? And I mean, this car is right there in the DuckTale spoiler era. And you don't think about it, but you look at the back of this thing, and it looks exactly like a little ducktail.
Well, the one that we were watching earlier, would that be considered amongst the whale tail era? Or is that, because I know that's a specific car that they usually refer to. But
the whale tail is a specific look.
Yeah.
I'm not even going to go there.
Well, no. I get what you're getting at. But there was a series of Porsches that they've described them. The 42, I feel like
slant nose.
Yeah. Anyways, we'll get off of it.
Goodness.
I think we're getting close to this one. Wrapping right now with Patrick Byrne, rather, still our fastest. And in fact, just went the fastest in the final sector this last time by. Currently running a 1:41.9, nearly 3 seconds faster than John Hill's Porsche 911.
He's driving it, because every single time it goes by start finish, I am hearing that thing rumble us through the commentator booth out here. So Patrick is definitely hustling that green number 40, or I'm sorry, red number 40 Corvette out there. I was getting my Christmas colors mixed up.
There's a lot of cars out this weekend for us to keep track of. This one definitely chock full of Porsches and Corvettes. Two very popular brands that have run in sports car racing for many, many decades now at this stage. Kind of cool to see them out there competing even in the old days of IMSA, which is also pretty interesting to consider the fact that we're watching 70s IMSA cars and seeing Corvette and Porsche were competing back then, and yet they still compete today in the same IMSA.
Yeah, it's very neat. I mean, even throw Toyota in, right? Because
Yeah.
Toyota has been developing with their GT4 car, and I'm not sure about the GT3 and whatnot, but yeah, lots of manufacturers have found their way in racing and realized how important racing is to not only the competitors, but also the culture that surrounds it as well. Now, this is really cool. Don't see these two cars next to each other very often. That is a Pagani Zonda on the right side. Now, I don't know which model it is. Pagani's made several different cars in the last 20 years. And then that is the classic Ferrari Enzo next to it.
Wow. Yeah, what a pairing next to one another. Another motivation for anybody who hasn't made it to the paddock yet to head on down there. Give a nice close look to a lot of these incredible vehicles. The Velocity Invitational, just an amazing celebration of car culture. But to me, the most amazing part, the fact that they take most of these cars out onto the racetrack and really get to show you what they could actually do. Seeing vehicles, at least up to this point, all the way from the 50s up to modern day, with I think the most recent being 2016 that we've had out on the circuit. About a minute left for this set, and then we're heading off to the next one. And another one that, as I've said, I'm very much looking forward to. 1981 to 2013 historic NASCAR stock cars going racing on a road course. Checkered flag is out there calling this one as over. We'll have just another 5-minute break. Then we'll be back with Group 7 here at Sonoma. here at Sonoma Raceway with Group 7, the 1981 to 2013 historic NASCAR stock cars at the Velocity Invitational. I'm Joe Peak with Joey Atterbury. I love seeing these things out on the track. This is pretty much the era of NASCAR that I grew up watching as well. The late 80s through the 90s to the early 2000s. And boy, do they sound amazing.
I think I saw a Quaker State out there. I see a Coors livery out there. I feel like we're watching Talladega Nights right now. Just a whole bunch of V8s rolling around this racetrack, making a whole lot of noise, and even the number 17 Tide machine going up the front straightaway.
And we talk about the variety of sports cars before. What about what we've kind of lost in NASCAR in terms of a decent variety? Obviously, you have a lot of your Ford Thunderbirds out there. We've got a Chevy Monte Carlo, a Dodge Challenger is racing. What about a Buick Regal out there right now? We've got a Pontiac Grand Prix out there, as well as an Oldsmobile Cutlass, as the 94 has gone off at turn 6.
Yeah, and I think that's just an example of how heavy and fast these cars are. Now, that was Sam McCord in the number 94 driving that 1990 Oldsmobile Cutlass. So, got to remember, these stock cars, heaviest cars we're going to see all weekend long. Probably some of the most amount of horsepower. You look at the tire underneath it, very, very small tire in comparison to how big that car is.
Exactly. The other cool thing is these are cars that did indeed compete at this track as well. So they're, in fact, getting to return and maybe revive a few memories of racing around here. The thing that always amused me is I once read an article talking about, NASCAR stock cars being prepped for road course racing. And the writer described having driven one of these as like taking a sledgehammer to smash a fly.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Now, and I think what most people don't understand is even in these, call it older vintage NASCAR machines, into the 90s and into the early 2000s, it's a solid. There's not much difference between a pickup truck suspension in the back end and these race cars. So, big, huge engines. They try to take a lot of the weight out, but they're still very, very heavy machines. And then, you got to be able to put all of that power down to the ground. I mean, these cars, they're making 700 horsepower at least.
And you talked about Talladega Nights, but we can see a few of these very directly from another film era of Days of Thunder. If you're a big fan of that, the 89-90 sort of NASCAR stock car silhouette that you're used to, you'll see a few of them out here and rumbling their way around. Some very iconic liveries as well.
I was just about to actually say that. So, obviously, the number 17 Tide machine, that's a Waltrip livery, very famous, right? Of course, you got the 48, the Jimmy Johnson machine directly behind it. But I think the most interesting one to me is on the front straightaway right now. Number 42 car, the old Texaco livery. Lots of history behind that one.
The old, or at least for me, makes me think of Davey Allison.
Correct.
Yeah, for sure. That had a few fantastic drivers over the years. And the Miller High Life, honestly, one that always appealed to me. I don't know what it is about that gold and white, just is a very classic-looking car.
Well, it's a great time after the race as well.
So
and look at the bumper. It's even got the High Life completely over the entire rear bumper.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, our times are down into the 141s right now, and one of the more recent cars. In fact, I think the most recent car we've got with the 2013 Chevy Monte Carlo. In fact, that is the 24 that's out there running.
So that should still be a Jeff Gordon car.
You're right, yeah.
When Jeff was still out there racing. So I believe it may have an Exalta scheme on it.
I think you're right. I think I recall seeing that out there. I'll keep an eye out to see if I can spot it. And yeah, you are correct.
I still love that Texaco Haviland livery, that black and red car with the yellow. I mean, I just saw it go by us going towards the turn 11 hairpin. But yeah, definitely one of the more identifiable. Here's the 24 coming out of turn number 11.
These were cars that I collected in diecast when I was young. And before I got to do commentary, I would have little races outside with chalk and just mock up little things. So back in the day, little Joe Peak used to use these cars to eventually do what I get to do now, which is get to appreciate the real thing out at the racetrack.
If you want to share childhood, right, one of my earliest model cars, now it was a little bit more of a model car versus like a Hot Wheels or something.
Yeah.
Old Ferrari 330 P4, one of the most amazing Ferraris ever made.
Absolutely. So there we see, like we said, there's a 2013 era, so that would have been, that'd be Gen 5, I think they were running at that point.
That's going to get lost to me.
Okay.
And I think that's one thing that NASCAR has also done in the last, call it 2 decades, is that they've been trying to update their machinery into what is more current, right? Because for the longest time, their race cars put on some of the best racing and some of the most awesome action that you'll ever see in terms of motorsports. However, the technology behind it was quite old.
Exactly, and that was actually by design for most of the time up until recently, that they were wanting it to be a challenge, even if it was older technology. Really keep the drivers on their toes, force them to have to earn it. But obviously, has changed recently. Still, we get to appreciate the old tech here. We're down to the 140s now. 140.1 as Tim Lynn is the one who is definitely on it today. Although Cole Moore just hit a 141.1, so he gets just under a second within range on that latest lap.
And we should give a shout out to that number 12 car because it is a Dodge. Now, there are a few Dodges out there, but that's a 2006 Dodge, so one of the more recent Dodge cars that they competed in NASCAR. And, of course, now the Dodge brand is back into the truck series, but they were away for a little while.
Very glad to see them return. We've got the 94 of McCord. That's that Cutlass that I was talking about, Oldsmobile Cutlass. Again, one of the names that you would not expect to show up in racing. Themselves and Buick competed in NASCAR during this era, the late 80s, early 90s. Actually, I'd say they'd go back to the early 80s as well. I think they had a few models that competed earlier on. But there was a brief stint where you saw a whole wide variety of cars that were all trying to make their way in. This was obviously at a time where they were also kind of still working to try and get the best aero they could out of these cars. Speeds were picking up and just getting faster and faster.
Pretty interesting because the Sunoco livery is a very famous livery, and this rocks the Sunoco blue and Sunoco on the hood and tail. And of course, that Sunoco livery first made famous by the Camaros way back in the day. And then I got the very, very fortunate pleasure. There you go, Sunoco race fuel right here at the racetrack. But they continued on, and I got to race the 5th gen Sunoco Camaro, which was pretty neat when they did the remake.
Very cool. So did they bring Roger Penske out to talk to you about it then?
Yeah, I wish. I wish. He was involved in different manufacturers.
Yes, yeah. That's true. That's true. This is the 57. Oh, interesting. It says we've got Matt Johnson and Alex Brundle. Now, I'm curious if Alex is in the car. I didn't realize that Alex is here this weekend. There is another name well recognized in racing, and especially us on the commentary side. Alex with quite a career, both behind the wheel and behind the microphone. So I'd love to pick his brain.
Yeah, he's definitely out there and racing around right now. That number 57 car currently sitting in 12th place, just doing a great job, turning some laps, letting all of the fans out here in California listen to these huge V8s.
I would like to hear how the deal started out to get him into one of these cars. We're going to have you drive at an exhibition, and we're going to stick you in an 80s NASCAR stock car. I'm sure he jumped at the chance.
Does it come with a Big Mac?
It better.
Well, about 6.5 minutes, just under 7 minutes remaining here in this session before we have a little bit of a break for lunch. I know I am eagerly anticipating that one.
Speaking of Big Macs, yeah.
Yeah. Maybe that rocket espresso machine out back, too.
Indeed. So, about 6 minutes left, so we're not quite there yet. Yeah, that Quaker State livery, definitely, like you mentioned, one of the more iconic ones. This 26 is the 95 Ford Thunderbird. I'm trying to remember who would have been driving it at that time, because it kind of escapes me right now.
Yeah, your guess would be as good as mine. I'm a huge Ford Thunderbird fan. My dad had a classic 1957 Ford Thunderbird, so obviously very, very different than what we're watching. But I have always wanted one of these, call it early 90s Thunderbirds, to essentially make a replica car of one of these.
That would be fun to watch. And, yeah, the name definitely lives up to it when it comes to NASCAR stock cars. As we watch it head down the hill here with who is behind the wheel. Looks like Doug Schultz is in that car currently running. I don't see a time next to him, so might not have his transponder working currently.
His 17 card. I mean, they all sound good.
Yeah.
Right? But yeah, the Tide livery with it all. And looks like the 48 is stopped on the racetrack going towards turn number 7. Now, he is pulled off to the right side, but he is still on the surface itself.
Yeah. So he's stopped before the cones. If he had been able to make it past the cones, it may have been a little bit safer, but the cars are heading towards the left-hand side of the track. So it looks like they're just going to call the session. Unfortunately, a little bit early, but I'm glad we got plenty of running. We will be back. It's lunchtime, folks. It's time to grab a little bit of a snack, but we will be back with racing on the circuit with the Porsche Cup Practice 2 for Sprint Challenge USA West. So stick around.